Donga, the gun shop owner, cornered Kurari Hilana and demanded if he'd forged that sword. And Kurari Hilana nodded, answering yes. He demanded, "How long have I been here?" And when the truth was right at the tip of his tongue, Karuri answered, "Since you stepped in about a year." The master finally snapped that it was time. The lord's foolish son had to come home, and he warned him, "Don't you set foot back here until you've told me you've chosen your path as a blacksmith." The teacher looked him in the eye and said, "I've got nothing left to teach you," then watched him swear he'd take on the whole world solo, while calling out his terrifying lack of talent. He told him to keep forging metal every single day, because if he stopped, his hands would turn dull without practice. While Kurari lit up at the thought of finally landing a real profession. He was just about to snatch an apple off the tree when his father shouted, promising to buy it if he came down. He remembered dying in his old life in a freak accident, and then, bam, realized he'd been reincarnated into a brand new world, the same one from the Genshu Academy game he'd been playing. Genshu Academy is a romance-driven game where the heroine forges deeper ties with the royal family and nobles through love. And every time her rivals act up, they slam obstacles into the main character's path. Out of the whole game, there was just one single scene where you finally got to see Kurari Hilana. Only once. In the game, they paint him as a wicked rich girl, but somehow at the end, he still ties the knot with her, even though he's not a nobleman at all. The joke wrapped around a humiliated aristocrat who ended up married to some poor farmer, and he vowed he'd dodge that fate at any cost. He decided to throw everything he had at fate just to dodge that stupid ending. The boy trudged back home only to hear the grim news. This month, the peasants had dwindled. The second he walked in the door, he felt like the trouble was already brewing. But his parents acted like nothing happened, and he told himself it was way too soon to throw in the towel. He knew he had to get to the bottom of what happened, lock down a plan for what came next, and trust the library's custodian to have his back. The keeper snapped that it all came from training with a blacksmith, then told them to drop the subject and switch to something else. He snapped, asking if anything could be done as their peasants kept shrinking in number, and the custodian answered bluntly, the only big money these places had was tourism. This place is gorgeous beyond belief, but tourists keep vanishing because there's nothing special made here that draws them in. When he saw the tourist flow drying up, he knew the peasants would vanish with it, scattering to safer, steadier lands, until his family's money ran out and bankruptcy crushed them. The Guardian handed him the next page of Chris Helen's book and told him straight up that if he could truly make sense of it, then his magic power had jumped higher than before. He leaned in and demanded, "So you know this, Chris Helen Ann?" The young man froze, unsure what move to make because the whole situation still felt completely up in the air. He stumbled on a report that lately strange, mysterious noises have been echoing up from underground. Kururu thanked everyone who showed up, then told them the letters from the village had turned up something incredible, an actual hot spring. They picked up their tools, went full steam into the earth, and kept digging until they hit something hot like a secret blessing. He yelled at his father that the hot spring had burst and overflowed. He looked his father in the eye and declared the hot spring would be their new star attraction, because once it started pulling in money, tourists would pour in and everyone would benefit. Seeing the crowd swarm the first prince, he grabbed the moment and darted toward the second prince, Rasha Kyuden. He tipped his hat and introduced himself, Kururi, Helen, and Rasha. And the moment Kyuden asked what he wanted, tension snapped into place. The hero leaned in and asked if she knew Helen territory, then practically invited her to their hot spring. She just blinked and said, "If I'm not mistaken, that place is Lord Thorn's Helanu." She leaned in and asked how he pulled it off, and he smirked, saying he'd show her, because one visitor was already guaranteed. He couldn't believe the queen showed up, so he asked what was going on. She told him they'd go right on as usual, because Rasha said she wanted to visit the Helen's territory. She shot him a grin and asked, "You a good rider?" Then she offered to take him with her on horseback, because for her, traveling wasn't something you talked about, it was something you rode. He felt something was off, like they'd pushed way too far into the heart of the forest. Suddenly a monster burst onto the scene, roaring at Rasha to duck. Now, Sigmund roared fire. They raced back home grinning from ear to ear. He thought it all finally clicked. Then reality hit him with one last truth. He yelled that they were way too far to visit, then demanded to know whether he'd actually been invited. Many days later, he stood at the Ranch of Falls and watched wave after wave of fresh tourists roll in. Lotson, speaking for the peasants, thanked him for all his hard work. Then he shook his head and insisted the credit should be theirs, because he'd learned so much and this was just one of the countermeasures. The keeper stopped him cold and demanded what he was up to, then he grinned and said, "I finally did it." He told them he'd been grinding through the second book's magic and swore he could pull honey out of apples if he just used the change in the essence of water. He told him Kururu-sama already mastered this kind of magic, then handed him the next book, So Kururu stared at the apple like it was packed with power and decided to try it right away. He blurted what happened and felt mana surge into his body like fire. They finally tracked down where the first king's treasure was hidden, the empty land people only whispered about in old history books. Kururi's new power-up hit like a lesson. He unleashed water magic and turned the battlefield into a raging water swamp. His brother screamed that the floor had become a swamp and that he couldn't move a single inch. He grabbed Spellbook S, and before he could even breathe, he realized he'd walked straight into a trap. He thought he'd already tested what the magic apple could do, and next time he'd try it with a weapon. Then the others snapped at him to not leave them there. Kururi-sama swept the Black Shadow crew up and took them prisoner. He double-checked everything, swore nothing was missing, and felt it. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. He was finally headed to school. He figured the next 3 years would decide his whole future. So he vowed to steer clear of messing with the game's characters as much as possible. The crowd pressed a parting gift into his hands. He bowed and thanked them, and then he launched into his journey. He spotted a girl with a giant backpack stomping down the road. The young man hesitated, wondering if he should swing by and give her a ride. Because if she hit the road and ran into some wild animal, things could turn dangerous fast. She dressed like an ordinary commoner, yet her jet black hair and gentle features radiated a calm that felt impossible to ignore. Then it hit him, she was the one. Karover worried she might be sick, and he couldn't just turn down that fragile girl. Yet he refused to treat her like some inhuman thing either. He was absolutely sure this wild twist would somehow land in his favor, so he stepped up and greeted her. He flashed a smile and leaned in, asking her straight up if everything was alright and if she was really okay. Iris Palala, the main character of Genshu Academy, just shrugged and said she was wiped out, then plopped down to rest and told everyone not to worry. She demanded to know how he figured she was headed there too, and he just shrugged. His road went that way, so he assumed hers did too. She thanked him for worrying, then told him she could make it on foot, and he just sat there thinking, watching her go, knowing it would take her a whole half-month. The hero told her he had to ease her worries first, so he introduced himself Kururi Helen. And when she found out he was from Helen House, the place that owned the hot springs, shock hit her hard. He asked if she wanted to talk while he drove her, and she lit up and told him visiting the springs had always been her dream. He grinned to himself. Wow, it was easy to click with her. And then he spotted the mountain of luggage she was hauling around. She thanked him for letting her ride in his carriage, swore she'd repay him someday, and when they finally had a moment, he pushed for a chat about springs. Because traveling solo, he said, was plain boring. He claimed the Helen Springs work wonders on the skin, leaving it silky and bright, and even said they just found out that drinking their water delivers the same amazing benefits. She said she couldn't clear the debt if he kept pushing this, so he shrugged and suggested they'd settle it by paying for the meal, then stuffing themselves with something delicious and digging into Helen's holdings while they talked. He decided that a meeting this fast had no place in the game anymore, then went straight for what he wanted. No questions, no rules, until he grabbed Iris's attention and told her he had something urgent to say. She claimed he was totally absent-minded, and that she couldn't make heads or tails of what he said, while he worried that school life wouldn't be much fun and that she'd run straight into discrimination. Iris finally opened her mouth and poured out her past. Her father was a blacksmith, but he died when she was just 12, leaving her to survive with her mom and a bunch of brothers and sisters, toiling in the fields while crushing taxes made it feel like they could barely breathe. She said she was thrilled to get accepted, but the second she left home, loneliness hit her hard. So he started worrying about her safety and figured maybe he could lift her spirits with stories about his father. The carriage screeched to a halt, and he snapped that something was seriously wrong. He noticed the monsters crashing the scene, and he knew they were doomed, because they'd been stopped right at the entrance with that pass in their hand. She burst into tears after he swallowed her nonsense, and once he realized he couldn't just refuse, he ordered his men and set off. She thought she could handle it from here, but she'd probably refuse. Since she hadn't actually done anything, she couldn't take the money. He promised, "I'll take out one, then you rush the other," and Iris could blast them with magic. Then she shot back, "We're probably way too far for that." He roared at them and unleashed a blast of fire into the enemy. She clocked it instantly and lunged the second the next one came rushing in. The girl sobbed in a rush she'd shattered the sword. She choked up and said her mom had saved every last coin just to get it, and he promised he'd fix it, then shot back, "Do you really think I ca?" Kurudu promised he'd crank it even tougher and stronger, but she shot back that she loved it exactly like this. Then he offered to grab the pass and get back to the road. He felt his heart still dripping with pain. The hero handed them 2 gold coins like he promised, then introduced himself, Karuri Halon, and the merchant beamed, saying he was glad to hear any advice, but he better not forget the girl's name or face. She pressed him on what he'd do with the gold coins, and he snapped back that he'd march them straight home to his family. The young man blurted out that he couldn't accept it because she'd earned that money. Then she shot back, "I don't have anything else to pay with." She flashed him a grateful smile, promised she'd send the coins straight to her family, and he couldn't help but think it was the smartest move. She promised she'd repay him 100 times over someday, swore she'd never forget that debt, and then he pushed the idea. "Let's hit the academy and have some fun." They couldn't stop staring at the academy's massive scale, calling it absolutely huge. They heard new students could come in and fill out their paperwork here, and that there was a warm indoor building meant just for girls. Karuru thought it was over for now, but the mess still had to be packed up, and with exhaustion dragging him down, he finally shrugged and told himself, "I'll deal with it tomorrow." He suddenly realized the academy was absolutely massive. Everywhere he turned, towering buildings just crushed the horizon. And I was blown away by how amazing it felt to dive back into blacksmithing after just a few days away. He didn't think it was a wall at all. He swore it was a colossal giant towering over everything. He flashed a grin and introduced himself as Curare. Then Hallen leaned in and asked if he and his neighbor were the same age. Because wow, his voice was way too deep. The neighbor claimed he was Wing 1 to 2, the Royal Knight's son, Captain Vane Lot, and that his family controlled the Hellen's territories. He bowed his head and apologized, then admitted, "I'm back again." Their neighbor just admitted he was totally thrown off by the conversation, then realized he'd forgotten to tell him about it. A brutal bone-rattling knock slammed the door. Ever since he was a kid, he chased strength, sharpened his sword day after day, and even though he didn't want to admit it, his father's insistence is what dragged him to this academy to forge his character. Kururu finally spotted his own reflection, grinned, and told them, "We can sit anywhere, this is the moment." He couldn't figure out why he'd yanked him inside. Then, to his shock, the same guy was right on his heels. The young man realized this had to be the worst possible spot to talk, because he was stuck right behind him the moment he sat down. He panicked if he guessed wrong, they'd hack him to death or toss him aside like trash, because he couldn't even see his own face, and he had no way to know what he was truly thinking. The hero told his friend, "I'm fixing your sword and I'll hand it back better than before. So if I ever slip and do something rude, say it to my face without holding back." He snapped at him to get lost, because he didn't have a clue what to say. Then he insisted he'd never split food into favorites and unfavorites. Kyujiro realized he was a good guy deep down, but there was nothing he could really say to him. And the second he tried to be polite, he'd drown in a sea of acquaintances. He shot back a loud hello. He leaned in and asked if he'd been waiting for the first sunbeams, and then he pulled him inside. And he told him, "Let me take you somewhere. Thanks for keeping me company yesterday, I'm treating you to breakfast there." He flashed a grin at Iris and told her, "Yep, here I am right where I said I'd be." She confessed she was terrified she wouldn't get into the boys' dorm, but before school even started, she just strolled right in. Iris stepped up and introduced herself to Wayne Lot, and Wayne basically said, "So you really said you wanted to go somewhere today, want me to roll with you? If you do, this whole plan won't just fall flat." She asked where the academy library was, begged to see it, and he couldn't help but think it was a real shame. He told her, "I finished your sword," and she lit up. She thanked him and said she'd already sent the gold one to her family. Kurujudu couldn't shake it. No matter what, Iris was the kind of beauty that made his thoughts stop cold. She flushed red and admitted it was the first time anyone had called her beautiful, and he shrugged back that he was just stating the obvious. He told himself that's how a true seducer thinks, then grinned at Kuroi and said, "All right, time to move out." He said that up in the north, crops grow plenty of food, yet folks barely touch grain or vegetables, and Karuri just smirked, thinking that out in this endless sea of grass, maybe things weren't as bleak as they sounded. He said there's raw meat on the table, and somehow that's what people call pure human ingenuity. The man claimed that if you chomped raw meat, you could steal some of the key nutrients plants hold. And that's exactly how the people of the north managed to survive. He finally got the plan. Everyone knew they hardly ever got sick, and that's why they lived for a long, long time. The student begged for him to give it a shot, but Curry snapped that he needed to head home. This story was more than his strength could handle. He blurted, "What a gorgeous place," and then cringed because he'd just killed their breakfast right in front of him. He asked what it even meant to stare into an animal's eyes. Was it some cruel joke? And another snapped back that if you do it right before slaughter, you'll never stop seeing that face while you eat. He screamed, "Don't kill me." But they leaned in and said the tastiest thing was that awful thing, then dared him to try it. She told him to picture Rasha gifting him berries, snatching the sweetest one, then even peeling off the leaf like it was nothing. Iris shoved the truth at him, no backing out, and told him to pretend those bloody guts were just a berry. He couldn't believe how gentle that flavor was. Then he wondered if it was truly good enough to make tears sting his eyes. He said it was the first time anyone had ever thanked him like that, like it hit straight into his soul. Kurodu admitted he'd never had friends before, swore he thought they'd click, and now somehow, They're tied together by sheep intestines. He bragged that he'd introduced himself in every room, but somehow in Wing 1/3 tree, nobody really warmed up to him. The hero admitted it was brutally hard to click with everyone, then told himself, don't stress, it's going to be okay. He asked if it still surprised him, how people can love and hate each other so fiercely, and how it's not exactly every day he stops to think about something like that. Kurjuru told them he'd been grinding since he was a kid, studying and training every single day, because tomorrow's placement tests were finally here. He promised he'd do his absolute best, and swore that if nothing weird happened, the best would head straight to Class A. The student blurted, "Excuse me." Curate Dona called this room home. He figured he didn't have a problem with Wayne at all, until he realized he meant it, every single word, no jokes. Even with her eyes unable to see his face, the girl swore he was kind to Curare Helen Dono's guy. Then the man snapped, "I'm not Curare," and ordered her to get out. She snapped, called him a scoundrel, and demanded to know why he was lurking in Karare's room, like he'd come there to pull something shady. Curare came barreling in, demanding to know why they were fighting, but the man snapped at him to go inside and deal with it himself, because someone had been wildly rude. She stepped forward and said, "I'm Crossy." And Morel's eyes lit up as she gushed that it was an absolute honor to finally meet him and that he looked exactly like she'd pictured. She leaned in and asked, "Can I be your student?" The girl admitted she'd heard about his crazy skills with a sword and magic, and she demanded to learn the same power, then begged him to spill every secret. The man snapped that she should leave if she was done and warned that if she kept going like this, trouble would catch up to him one day. The other girl snapped that he stood no chance, because this titan was about to tear him apart and swallow him whole. Crossy told her they were the same age, then fired off the question, why did she want to be his apprentice? She told me she'd bumped into Iris Dono by pure chance, and he flat out told her he was exactly the kind of person she needed to know. And then she admitted she was done standing still, she had to get stronger. The man demanded why she was chasing power and she snapped, saying it was chauvinism. She screamed at the top of her lungs, insisting, "I'm not a girl, I'm a boy." He told him, "I can only give you what I've done and what I've learned with my own hands," then asked if that would be enough. And when the other guy answered, he said, "That's exactly what I was hoping for." He agreed to take him in as a student, then swore he'd pour everything he had into it, pushing past every limit his body could possibly handle. With that physique of his, the young man said straight up that even if he managed to learn magic, fencing would still be a nightmare. And if he truly wanted to get stronger, he'd have to start by hammering his body into shape first. He yelled that he'd never follow his orders, and then claimed his teacher was Curare Dono. Wayne snapped, "Stop staring," then demanded, "So, are you in love with me?" Karudi shot back, "Not yet. I've got to train my body first." The young man snapped that no matter what, he had to stay flexible while he stacked strength. And once his muscles started bulking up, the power would follow. He told him to fix his posture, then to start running in a week to build endurance, and until that day, to push his flexibility every single day. He told me to treat every word he said as law, then spread my legs wider. He snapped at him to keep his hands off his thighs, but they shrugged and told him, "You're a man." Instructor Michelle Wu burst into the scene at the entrance exams and welcomed everyone like the show was about to start. She told him today's physical test was a 10-kilometer run, a total breeze, and Wayne snapped to the other guy, "If you can't even touch it, you can't help me." Eliza DeVille. He fretted over the best way to strike up a conversation, then decided to keep it simple and say hello. And in the game she was sitting pretty in Class A, fresh off a first-place finish in the marathon, while her 4 knights were tagging along too. One girl from the road shouted at another, yelling, "You're a fan." She blurted out that Eliza Sama had her so thrilled she couldn't even get words out, then practically urged her to sit down right then and there. Kururu grinned and said, "No matter what you stare at, her face and looks still make her an insanely attractive girl." She thanked him for his words, said she needed to get ready, and if he could forgive her, they agreed to both give it a real shot. The hero figured she'd be the kind to pick on Iris, so his big job at this academy was to stop it, without smashing her pride. He swore he'd hold the reins at any cost, because this time he fully expected to crawl across the finish line in second. She said it looked like he still had a little fight left in him. The hero spotted Iris and Eliza sprinting down the road, arms pumping like they were running from fate. He wanted to scream at Iris to back off, because if she grabbed first place the bullying would start, but his voice just wouldn't come out. Eliza slipped past just a little earlier. The girl lit up and said Eliza absolutely crushed it. He figured there was nothing he could do. After all, a commoner like her had still been allowed into school thanks to her gifts, and she crushed every single test. He couldn't resist checking Wayne's score, and the moment he saw it, he knew it was even better than he'd ever expected. And he was absolutely sure of it. Crossy didn't get moved to another class because his physical score hit 122, but his written only landed at 114, so he clenched his fists and swore he'd push himself even harder next time. Wayne told Karuri, "You'll help me crank up my studies, and I'll handle my physical training." Then he even went off on a weird claim that a guy shouldn't just eat vegetables so easily. He claimed he'd blown past him in every study and squeezed out everything he could, then admitted it wasn't the lessons that hooked him, it was the mystery of how he even knew his name. He said he was thrilled to finally meet him. Then his eyes flicked to that weird, awkward silence like it meant something bigger. He told Kuroi-isan to come back and talk later. The girl said she'd taken first place and that someday he'd soar to huge heights and finally be able to thank her for it. She leaned in and demanded Eliza explain why her face looked so bitter. Eliza admitted she had no clue what vitamin C's scientific name was, then bolted before anyone could press her. He was sure he'd never, ever heard vitamin C described as ascorbic acid, and the wild part is, he didn't even realize he didn't know it either. The hero proudly claimed he forged a perfect blade, so tell me, isn't it a masterpiece? He figured those tiny monsters really did live in this forest, and then he spotted a rotting demon lurking there. He decided to put the sword to the test on him, because no way was he wasting time on a poisonous monster. And then he hit them with materialization. Vegetable monsters burst into the world. He bid them farewell, then swung up and rode off fast, because one wrong touch could mean poison death. The young man faced the boys and declared it was time to say goodbye. He admitted he never thought he'd run into her there, and she grinned and said she'd come to grab some wild vegetables. Ira said today's meeting went great, bragged about how polite he'd been, and hinted that someday it'd be awesome to live nearby. The girl said we both got great meetings today, and promised she'd be careful, but when he looked at her, loneliness hit him like a silent punch. Kururu said telling her would help her get a grip on her feelings, but she snapped back that this was a fight, and words alone wouldn't be enough. She ordered us to charge ahead. The director snapped, cut the long speeches, soak in the show the senior students have been grinding for. One guy sat in Class A with Wayne, while Crossy got shoved into Class C. So yeah, he couldn't stop wishing Crossy would land in the same class as them. He spotted the prince, Rain, Eliza, and Iris, but the fangirl was nowhere in sight. The girl snapped, "All right, everyone, take your seats." Teacher Michelle Wu strode in, introduced herself, and laid out exactly how the classes would run. Yet the boy was already convinced he'd gotten more from the booklet than that endless speech. One guy stepped up and promised to hook another guy up with a notorious collector of magic swords. Amari promised she'd teach them herbalism, but that meant non-stop practice, not book ideas. He figured he needed something that could actually make them money, not just theoretical lessons. She told him herbs are dirt cheap, and her dream is to grow a huge variety of them, ones almost anyone can plant and raise. She marched up, introduced herself as Todo Gap, and told him straight up she was itching to get to know him. She told him she wore it so people wouldn't steer clear of her, then smiled because he was finally into herbs. She just couldn't wait for him to study her research. The hero shot, "Wait, this isn't a herbalism class, is it?" And she snapped back, "Nope. These herbs are bred by me and this is my territory, so don't get it twisted." He couldn't stop admiring the gorgeous flowers, and she told him she'd already tried them, and they absolutely had an effect. She told me there was some grass in there that would rip your stomach into knots, and also something that hit you with the feeling of floating in heaven. She leaned in and told him straight up that she needed his help to sell every last one of those herbs. He claimed he was a nobleman, just the fourth son of a family with tiny territories, and he flat out admitted he'd need a fortune someday. Kururu bragged that his lands were famous for hot springs, and he swore you could rake in serious money from those herbs too, just make it clean with no side effects. They set a fierce deadline. Finish the beauty plant before summer break in just 3 months, and he would swing by several times a week to keep it moving. The young man swore she was crying. He asked to sit there, but she shut him down fast and told him not to sit near her. The hero told her, "If anything happens between us, I'll be the one to tell you," and she snapped back, "That's none of your business." She confessed she got kicked out of Eliza Sama's group, and the test sealed her fate. She got shoved into Class E. The girl shrieked, "There's no way any of that exists for me." He told her, "If you're cool with it, we can be friends. And honestly, it's way better than you crying alone." She warned him that if he lets his mind drift while he's working, he could end up getting seriously hurt. He figured the guests had been a little too full of themselves lately, so he let them in and shot, "So, how's it going?" Eliza smiled and wished him a great day. The elf marched up to Guru Rasama and demanded, "Is Marime Sama here?" Then he fired back, "Do you have business with her?" and made it clear he wasn't here for anything either. She told him, "Marim is my follower." And even though they'd been split up, she couldn't shake the fear when she vanished out of nowhere. So she turned straight to Marim Zahn and demanded confirmation. He shot up and demanded to know what Eliza planned to do next, and Eliza answered that they were leaving. Then Marim, still staring out, nodded in agreement. Eliza snapped back that of course she'd punish her, and then she smirked, saying it was only natural to train a stray dog and that any nobleman like him ought to get it. She demanded to know what punishment they meant, then snapped that it wasn't his business since it was between them. But he shot back fast, saying Marie Mason was in his room and he couldn't just watch her get dragged away. Mary May swallowed hard, tears streaming down her face, and said, "Of course I understand, I've been serving Eliza-sama." He told Eliza to hold up because she needed to learn how to feel other people's pain. She snapped at him to shut up, and he shot back that everything he said was for her own good, then ordered her to study the word sympathy. He told her to stop bullying people, swearing it wasn't who she really was. Then he unleashed his super move, the friendship flick. Eliza snapped into tears, sobbing that it hurt and insisting even her own father never dared lay a hand on her. Then she hissed that she'd tell him everything. Marime, shaking with horror, demanded to know what he'd done to her beloved Eliza-sama. And then she launched at him, snapping that he didn't need to thank her. A student leaned in and hissed to his friend, stunned that he'd managed to piss off that girl so badly, even Prince Ark wouldn't snap at her like that. He told him to shut it down since they were in class, but the other guy clapped back, "I can't deal with her," then demanded the first kid go quiet so he could listen to the teacher, until the teacher roared at both of them to shut up. She was pretty sure. Railrain came from a farmer's family, but he never bragged about it. His parents were gone before he could even remember them. And when he was growing up with his grandfather, he ran into the prince by pure luck, then somehow ended up in the capital, staying close as the prince's friend and loyal follower. His counterpart clocked that the teacher had finally wrapped up, leaned in like, "All right, now it's practice time." And in his head he smirked, "I see right through you," before the second student begged to be spared from any more talk about Eliza. Rain said he liked working solo so he could focus, but admitted it was his very first autopsy and his nerves were all over the place. Then he suggested they do it together. Ruddy nodded, confessing he was nervous too. Q-Daddy said the first move was to split the stomach open. But the moment they tried, it turned out to be brutally harder than anyone expected. He claimed it was a heart. Then his partner spotted Kujirikun clutching the thing he'd cut out, totally convinced, and pointed out that the tales of flaying never fazed him the way they should have, because he clearly expected to walk right into Eliza's wrath. His partner shot him a question: what skills did he have and did he want to train as a doctor? Then she added deadpan that he reeked of money. Kurori admitted he was too close to it all and admitted he was strange, but he promised it was getting more interesting every single time, just like with Eliza. Rain said Kurori saw his dream of becoming a doctor, then urged him to study together. "Our reasons can be different, but I just need to talk to you more." He thought his partner was calling the first prince selfish, but then his partner snapped back that Ark was always hovering around him, an absolute selfish jerk with zero interest in making friends, and even told him that Q-Daddy didn't have to only talk to him during class. Kurori thought he'd really lost it. What a psycho. And just as they were joying about that narcissistic prince, his partner suddenly clocked something weird and asked Kurori-kun if he knew a girl named Iris. Karori said that would be the final word on the autopsy, and Rain came in, slapping his back hard, calling him merciless, then sweetly admitting that was exactly why she loved him, and Karori shot back that she didn't mean it like that. He told them Karori had real talent for medicine, dead-on technique, crisp clean movements, even the skill to handle living flesh. Yet something about him felt wrong. Rain told everyone he believed Kurori needed more practice to level up, then snapped that Kurori was exactly the right fit for the job, especially with that unshakable determination driving him. He said it was true, yeah, they breed and slaughter other animals for food, and he could live with that. But the moment he saw how they studied to save lives while taking others too, like in that autopsy, it hit him hard. He told everyone he wanted to be a doctor, but guilt crushed him. Because once the procedure was over, those animals would get tossed aside like nothing, and that would be the end. Kurori snapped that the instruments here felt blunt and clumsy, and that even suturing was a nightmare, so he should forge new tools, no question. Rain nodded along and told him Kurori was right, then pushed him to keep training toward his goal and get comfortable with the endless variety of doctors. Someone asked what he was going to do with it, and if he could take it. So Kurori said he planned to bury it himself, then got the nod to do whatever he wanted, and his friend immediately stepped in to help dig the hole. Rain said he'd keep at it as long as guilt still burned in his chest, and he honestly believed that made it right. Kurori shot back, "You'll help me," and Rain grinned, of course. He swore it was just coffee on a peaceful holiday morning as he kicked back with his book, pure cozy bliss. He couldn't wrap his head around why anyone would even need a book called Applied Curses ***, because from what he knew, anyone could pull it off with ease, and still, it sent chills down his spine. He couldn't stop thinking who stole it. Could it be Iris? Then he dug up a book titled ***Potato Growing Skills ***, but it was missing ***Volume 2 ***. leaving only *** volumes 1 and 3 ***, and that twist actually got under his skin. She asked what he was reading, and he shot back with the origin of the Kyuden nation. Then she admitted she'd been just as stunned the first time she stepped in, because this place is absolutely massive. She said he was totally a learning geek, always in deep study, and she was convinced his book would be pure fire. He couldn't help wondering, by her reaction, she wasn't the one who'd grabbed the second book, and that meant his question had just shattered her promise to not laugh. He quickly apologized for throwing her off, then told her they'd see each other. The hero figured, if it's not Iris, then Wayne's the only option. Even though he was dead sure Wayne would rather read books about potatoes, and he couldn't stop wondering where the hell the other book had vanished to. He asked with real intensity, and it hit him, Eliza. The young man was sure she'd love potatoes drenched in butter, and that felt totally logical, so he leaned in, asked what she was laughing at and if she'd actually seen him. She snapped that he was spreading rumors just to turn everyone against her, and he shot back that he never meant it that way. Iris snapped that if she kept the book in her hands she could shove him straight to the next world. Then he went pale, stunned she'd use it on him, and begged her to wait. She said she was totally into it, and since that was real, she pushed the conversation straight toward potatoes. He pictured everyone at the hot springs chowing down on potatoes slathered in butter. And then Eliza shot that idea down, saying he was wrong. She leaned in and demanded, "Tell me, do you know what I call people just like you?" The girl warned him that if he ever wanted the truth about potatoes, one day he'd end up burning. She said she was stunned he was actually into potatoes, then quickly begged him to keep it secret and not let anyone find out, because she was getting out of there right now. He begged her not to curse him, because fear was eating him alive, and she shot back that she'd do whatever she damn well pleased. Someone yanked him back and snapped that he was still a study lunatic, no clue what he'd even read the night before, and then he demanded answers, asking Wayne what he'd done. He blurted out her name and her gender, and the cat snapped back that stray cats don't get names, sure, basic truth, but then called him out for being rude since, yeah, she's a girl and he's acting like that somehow makes it okay. He asked straight up whether Nico-sensei was a magic teacher, and if she could actually use it. Then the guy quizzed them for their names, curare and wine, and he promised he'd never forget. Sensei told her she'd let them join her research group if they proved they had what it takes, and the man pushed for them to study first since classes hadn't even started yet. Sensei said it wasn't pretty, but hey, because it was a beginner-level spell, it still got the green light. Sensei told them to dig into their magic first, test it, reshape it, and learn what it's really made of, so you could judge its true quality, and she said Kyujiri was perfect for the crew, even if the rest of the group was a little wild because he'd slide right into place. Sensei looked at the girls and told one, "You've got it too," and the other, "You've got real potential," and Kyudori couldn't help but beam, because Nico-sensei was teaching with hardcore seriousness and both girls were straight up amazing. Sensei fired back that he was way too hyped to mess around, telling Kyujiri to stop wandering and start focusing, and Kyujiri swallowed hard, because this suddenly felt way too serious for comfort. The cat hissed, "Wait," because the boy Ark was still hunting for a way to get here. Then she worried they'd dragged in someone she couldn't stand, the first prince. Sensei grinned and promised, "Today I'm teaching you how to do it." She promised she'd teach them both her one-of-a-kind transformation magic, how she only guides a handful of students each year, the ones she truly admires, and how almost none of them ever manage to pull it off. Karuri blurted, "So that's why you look like a cat, Sensei?" And she nodded, "Yep, that's my real form." Then she snapped, telling them to wrap their bodies in magic because she could feel it crawling all around them. Sensei leaned in and told Vane, "You're still young, this shouldn't be a problem. Now you just need to pour out more magic." Vane gulped and thought, if Karuri can do it, then so can I. Sensei flashed a calm smile, said everything was fine, and told them to go for the hand transformation. Sensei told them they'd rewritten their essence with magic, and she added, "Once it's activated, you just hold on to the magical form, then shape it any way you want." Vane leaned in and told Kururi, "I'm still young and this magic coating on my body, it's nothing like Merceria Tia," and Kururi couldn't help wondering if that joke was just plain cruel. Karuri blurted, "I did it," and immediately thanked his sensei, who couldn't help but call him a genius, because in his eyes the Ark boy was just a regular guy. No savior, no villain, and definitely not playing as a prince. Sensei cut him off, saying that was it for today and he'd teach the next step later. Then Wayne urged Karuri to celebrate, and Sensei nodded right along with him. Vane shot back that sure, Karuri might be ahead right now, but in the end he'd win. Karuri shrugged, saying it didn't matter either way. Wayne pressed Karuri about what she and Iris really were to each other, and the answer clearly dug under his skin. Karuri just smiled and said, "We're friends." Curry laughed and said he was just joking, and Wayne shot back asking what he meant. But Curry insisted they were only friends, and Wayne didn't buy it for a second. Vane couldn't shake the feeling that Curry was no ordinary guy, especially with Iris praising him like he was something special. while Curry sat there wondering if Iris really saw this annoying nuisance as her prince. Kurori insisted he'd head to his room and finish forging, then quizzed Vane about what he was doing, talking swords and all kinds of weapons. And Vane couldn't help wondering if they were anything like his own magical blades, so he told Kurori, "That's exactly why you're coming with me." He swore every sword in that place was forged by a genius blacksmith, and selling even one could set you up for life. Kujiri couldn't believe it, but there was no way he was walking away from that. Wayne erupted in joyful cheers because he'd finally done it. He said he was heading to the herbalism room and Iris lit up. "I want to see it. Can I come with you?" He smiled and said, "Of course." Iris stared in awe at the giant silver vine, and Kurori nearly choked when he spotted the intruder. It was Iris. He insisted she was harmless, but she shot back that only she could decide. Iris stared at the massive silver vine and another girl leaned in like, "How'd you make it grow? Can I pull this off with vegetables too?" Iris smiled and said it came from several careful crosses. She begged, "Tell me how," and another girl shot back, "Anything's possible," while a third just shrugged, "I'm fine with it." Iris lit up and promised that after all this, she'd become a herbalist too. He couldn't stop wondering what kind of girl Iris really was, and he took comfort in the fact she meant him no harm. Because then another girl chimed in that she'd been growing a medicinal plant here, and it still didn't explain everything, especially not what Iris had asked for. She told him these petals refill your skin cells, and once you start rubbing, the boost clings to you for up to 10 hours. Yes, even when you're dead asleep. A friend swore the skin turned soft and silky with this sweet, dreamy scent, and then practically screamed that she could sell it. He pushed them to treat this as the launchpad and get everything locked down this summer. She nodded back. And even though she saw a few flaws, she promised they'd pull off a way better result. The prince figured at first that he'd picked the wrong guy to hate, but honestly, it was a good thing they were teaming up. Because that other boy told him he'd already contacted Nico's teacher, and he wasn't doing it just to be nice. He wanted to study with Kurori-san too. He snapped that even though he'd been first, Ark had slipped in line before him, pure unfairness. And then he dragged Karuri into his room after class, promising she could come before nightfall. He claimed the tool in his hands had a dull edge, but one swipe would still slice right through and rip everything apart with raw force. His friend blurted out that it was unreal. Kurori-kun was locked in like nothing in class, focusing totally differently with the drive and soul of a real worker. Kurori shot him a grateful smile and told him she could finally focus in class now that the distractions were gone, and his friend just shook his head, refusing to buy it. Because he couldn't do that either, and the whole thing left him stunned. His friend shrugged and said it wasn't surprising at all, but the truth hit him hard. He'd never felt anything this sharp before, like a jeweled blade that sliced cleanly better than every other tool. His buddy shouted that Kurori-kun was amazing, and he snapped back that it wasn't luck at all. He'd earned that greatness through sheer hard work. He claimed he had nothing going for him, but ever since he met Karuri, crazy amazing things started happening. And now his dream of becoming a doctor feels closer every day because he couldn't help but have the time of his life. He demanded one of those, swearing he'd put his soul into it, and then told Karuri that if she wanted it, he'd go get it. The girl flashed a warm smile and greeted him. She told him not to just freeze there like some iron statue. So when he asked who it was, she said his name and urged him to move on. She leaned in and asked if it felt natural for him to even know her name. Then he shot back an apology, admitting he couldn't remember someone like her at all. She said he honestly didn't know her, and that shook her. Then she clung to him, panicking, begging to know how he should be punished, and he snapped back, telling her not to scare him like that. Vane demanded to know what happened to Karuri and why his face screamed ghost sighting, especially since they'd told him to pick up the investigation right where they'd left off. Sensei told them last time they'd only used one hand, but today they brought out both, and Vane and Kadruity were blown away. He asked if they were dried fish, and Kurori told him Wayne had caught some and dried them for real. So he couldn't wait to share and decided to spoil Sensei with some, since they were so darn good. But Sensei snapped back that something like that just wasn't meant for a refined lady like her. Karuri snapped at her to shut up and she shot back, "No, give me more, just a little more." Sensei praised him as a good boy and said he'd already done it right, proving he was a truly talented young man, while she ordered him to add a tail, then tweak each part bit by bit, until his focus finally loosened. Sensei stared in disbelief. He'd become the first to master the transformation this fast, and it was pure jaw-drop brilliance. So she immediately barked for him to slam and compress his magical power. Wayne begged to learn the trick, but Sensei warned his power was still unstable, and told him to drill the transformation for a full 1 to 2 hours. A few days later on a weekend, he figured the street was empty, so he tried to pull off a transformation right there. The elf snapped at him to get up right now. She told him he could roam wherever he wanted and sleep anytime he pleased, then pushed even harder, begging to stay with him just a little longer. She said she wished she could be as free as he was, like a bird trapped in a cage. Then the cat just shrugged, convinced it was free too. She leaned in and asked, "Will you be my friend?" He leaned in and asked, "Are you okay?" The moment she saw the hero, shock ripped through her like lightning. He grinned at her and checked, "Are you okay?" Then she snapped his name back. The next second, she bolted after him, chasing his footsteps into the chaos. The next day, Karuri blurts out that he somehow slipped out yesterday and somehow made it through today too. "This can't keep going like this," he demands. Somebody slid a letter under his door like it was about to change everything. He can't stop thinking about that curse lurking inside, and he knows he can't hesitate. Because whatever's coming, demon, snake, or tiger, nothing changes. He has to move first, and those things won't get a chance to touch him. In the letter, the girl begs the boy to be okay, and she can't even close her eyes all night, replaying everything that happened. Because her father is the country's respected prime minister, and he loves her with his whole heart. The hero can't help wondering if she really scribbled it. No, she probably squeezed the words right onto the page. Then he poured himself a cup of tea and dove straight back into the reading. Eliza tells him something heartbreaking just went down between them, and she's begging that they keep it hidden. Then she pushes a deal. "Let's wipe the moment from our minds, she'll protect her honor, he'll keep breathing, and both of us walk away better." Karuri slumped against the sofa when a threatening letter landed in his hands, warning him that if he talked, it would spell his end. He shoots back a surprising reply, "I'm okay," then admits he's hoping, praying she's finally feeling better, and confessing he was scared when he heard she was sick because he knows her father is the prime minister, one of the biggest names in their country's politics, so he tells her straight, "Don't worry." He slid the letter out and flopped onto the couch, then swallowed her terms even though they weren't ideal, at least for now, until a weird popping sound suddenly snapped through the room. This letter arrived from Eliza, and Karuri can't shake the feeling it's not meant to patch things up. The girl writes that she's sure every word in his letters is true. Because yes, he really is the son of a provincial nobleman, and she only hopes his memories still match where he came from. The hero thought the story was great, but the mood felt all wrong meanwhile. The girl kept sipping tea until noon, waiting for a reply the entire time, and even if he somehow remembered, it still wouldn't guarantee he could share it with everyone. Karuri finally realized she couldn't just trust him, she needed proof he'd earned it. On the note, there were kind words about her being graceful and sweet, and he meant every single one of them, so she's sure it's not true, just empty talk. Then she drops to ask for forgiveness, and even though the hero only tosses out a small compliment, the impact hits like a thunderclap. So he shot back a reply, because everything she said hit him hard, and he spilled his hidden truth to her. He'd been an extremely overweight kid for years, and he begged her to keep it under wraps. He conjures a magical flower, pins it to the letter, and pours out his heart, calling her the sweetest, most graceful girl he's ever known. Because these are his real feelings, and he's praying it finally works. The answer hit fast, and the girl shot him a grateful smile as she clutched the flower, so stunning it didn't even feel real. She whispered that it was unlike anything else, the exact kind that represented her asterisk. Then she leaned in and asked, "Tell me, what's its name?" His secret was in good hands. Then she suddenly cranked the volume again like she'd already forgotten yesterday. He should have been happy, but instead, he decides to write back. He says he'd be thrilled to tell her the flower's called envy, when he spun from his own imagination. And in the language of flowers, it means a tiny spark of happiness. And he's just relieved she actually likes it. She plopped into a chair, then a letter landed in her hands, and the room felt like it changed instantly. It hints at what went down, and that incident already belongs to the past. Now she can't stop waiting for the moment she sees him in class. The hero pulled the mask over his face and grilled Toto about what it did. Toto just shrugged and said he had no clue, even as they started getting unbearably hot. And the other guy demanded why this was happening right here. To which Toto only smirked and muttered that this place was pretty cool. A cool breeze sweeps over him, then 3 hours vanish like nothing. He yanked off his mask because the heat was unbearable, then a friend called out. He snapped his head around and his eyes widened in shock. He said it felt like I was glowing too. And once I heard that, I couldn't stop staring at myself like I was glowing for real. Their skin is soft as a baby's, and the girl is terrified of what she can do. But Kurori realizes this could fix a lot of problems, and with a cooling touch on the mask, it'll feel refreshingly cool against the skin. He said he'd sell that batch, then flip it refrigerated at a special price, and Iris couldn't help but find it tempting. Right then, another girl popped in and teased that they were actually having fun. The hero shot back that he was experimenting, and then he grilled Iris about the vegetables. Iris snapped that they'd already cooked up prototypes with human faces. Potatoes, leafy greens, root veggies, even root vegetables plus grains and fruits. Everything grows, and it's all at least 10 times bigger. The girl leaned in and asked him which seeds he'd plant first. Iris shot back, "I don't know," because the check step wasn't optional, it was for everyone. These were still prototypes, and if they didn't sprout, then it wasn't on her. Coonerty leaned in and asked if she'd send some to her family, and she answered without hesitation, yes. Even after Iris slipped into that prestigious school, she hadn't changed one bit. So he vowed to learn from her and went all in on planting those seeds, praying they'd take root. Because if it worked, he'd finally be happy to get what he'd hoped for. Racing, that's nothing. Brog's greed is going to burn everything down. That young man started materializing seeds you couldn't even see. And the next second, carrots with human faces burst up from the ground like they'd been waiting. The young man figured it was just another loss, until the girl snatched one up, grinned, and told him he was cute. The hero practically froze in shock. Another carrot hit the ground. She snatched it up and blurted, "Is this okay?" Then the other two carrots dropped right after. They did it just to catch the girl's eye. Then Karuri's anger flared, and she tore into them with brutal insults. Iris asked Tim if he needed herbicides, and he shot back that he didn't. A few days later, the hero slips into the greenhouse and hunts for Todo, only to find nothing. That's weird, because Todo always shows up first. So the hero throws his gaze toward the fields and checks there next. He spotted the bitten carrots, and just couldn't wrap his head around what was happening. The field got plowed out of nowhere, so tell me who did it. Kudari can't wrap his head around who would have done this, and he can't shake the thought that it might have been done to Cyrus. Whoever it was, they're not letting him off the hook. If they somehow fix it all, the punishment might be the only thing that stays small. Then the hero snapped back to the experimental samples. He sprinted to check them, but the damage was already done. While the others sank back, this one stayed standing. So why is the guy so confused during the break? Turns out Iris wasn't the target at all. So who was, and where the heck did Todo disappear to? Then Iris showed up and demanded answers, while Curary tried to explain something he still couldn't even figure out yet. The girl snapped that it was hopeless. Everything was gone, and she refused to watch Karuri's face crumble into sadness. She vowed she'd never forgive whoever was behind it. Then Todo burst out from behind the tree. He threw out an apology to his friend, then confessed the gut punch. Their precious prototype was gone, snatched right out from under them. But he insisted they still had roots and seeds ready to be replanted. "We're going to make it," he swore. Then the hero snapped back, voice shaking, "Yeah, what happened after that, since you've got no face?" He brushed it off like it was nothing, then said, "We've got to tidy up the garden, break is starting any minute." Iris snapped Kururi's name and he told her, "You take care of outside, I'll tackle the inside." Then he jumped right in and started cleaning up too. The hero can't stop wondering what truly went down. He shot another apology back, saying he had to finish everything before the break. Then no more trouble would come, but Cuteri demanded to know what really happened. Was there some reason he couldn't just say it? He apologized, swore that once they were gone he'd get back to tending the plants, and then really meant it. While the hero stood there, stuck on what he should start next, convinced there had to be a reason they couldn't talk. He swore he'd hang around a bit longer to get every last seed planted today, so Iris and Karuri could finally head home. The hero promised he'd help, and the girl backed him up. Then the young man reminded her that exams were coming fast, so she should really go study, and she shot back that she'd stay right there with him. They decided to jump in together, because he insisted one person was enough for the job. Karuri and Iris shot each other a look, then closed the distance, surrounding him and pushing, "No, let's do it together." They refused to leave things the way they were. He's way too young to handle this alone, and Todo won't say a word about it. So what's he supposed to do? The boy leaned in and asked Coonerty why he was so gloomy, because Coonerty wasn't keeping his usual distance for once. Did that mean he finally accepted him? The hero couldn't even believe it. He figured Coonerty didn't have the strength left to laugh at his jokes. A classmate leaned in and spilled what really caused the disorder in that garden. And the moment those words hit him, his curiosity caught fire. Even though he has zero interest in him, the hero can't believe what he hears. Maybe this guy's just a tool. Then Karuri steps in and demands the information. A young man studied the document and the truth hit him, why Todo couldn't lift a finger at all. Then, right at 4 in the afternoon, Ryan Christopher, Mori Gap's bandleader, slipped into the garden, yanked a few plants for himself, and vanished with the rest of the crew that wrecked everything. Todo sprinted after him, but it was too late. He got beaten back hard. With Mori leading the family and Todo just an offshoot, he couldn't risk striking at their high status, because the only thing that mattered was keeping his own family safe. This is his report. His friend didn't ask for a reward before because Eliza and Curary are close, but now he wants that payment ASAP, and the young man knows arguing is pointless right now. This info was too valuable to ignore. He knows he can't openly fight back, but he also can't stomach what's been done. So what's he supposed to do now? Karuri went hunting for Mori Gap, then stopped a random passerby and peppered them with questions about where he'd gone. And then boom, he spotted the guy. The hero felt rage claw up in his chest, but he forced it down, not now. So it's all for Todo, no one must recognize him. Now imagine this, where could the boys possibly go? He decided to tail them and the whole scene felt impossible, like why would anyone be here? Then it hit him, their prototype. The boys started cracking up over Todo's reaction, how he tried to cling to that flower like it was life itself. And honestly, it was hilarious and dumb at the same time, while Kurori sat there hearing the whole thing for the first time. Mori heard they were about to throw him back in jail and he couldn't take it. He begged to visit just once. His friends rallied behind him, then the hero snapped and insisted on going, determined to finally tell him the nightmare he'd been living through. He stormed out and demanded, "Do you honestly think this is funny?" He looked like a giant carrot with a face, and he made it his mission to keep those nightmares clinging to them. When they ask who he is, he calls it Mercy, then points at the plant he smashed in the garden. The boys swear that's impossible, but honestly, people his age might still eat up a story like that. And right there, he flashes a little violence. He rocketed a punch straight into one guy's face. Then he drove a fist straight into the guy's stomach. Mori didn't hang back at all. He surged forward and started smashing the carrots. The hero didn't crack. He stayed razor calm, slammed him down to the ground, and pinned his arm with a move that left his hand tucked behind his back. Then the boy slammed down a decision he'd use magic. The hero clocks the nightmare, his form won't last. Mori swears Todo put him up to it. Kyutori's form crumbled away. Then the enemy clocked him instantly, and the young man snapped that Todo hadn't warned him at all, just his moves gave it all away. He snapped back that even after he finished with him, he'd still beat him anyway, so the young guy said it didn't matter what he did, just don't touch Todo, but Todo didn't care in the slightest. He'd beat him up next, and Todo. In the next heartbeat, the young man snapped forward and smashed him right across the face. He tells them, "Try anything funny against us again and you're done." And he swears on his own name that he'll kill them cold. No regrets at all, even if they so much as drag trouble onto Todo. He warns them, "Don't you dare touch my stuff again." And if they try to scheme against him behind his back, he'll end them for good. The boys panicked and bolted, and as they fled, Karuri collapsed to the ground, already terrified this mess could come back to haunt Todo later. Later, the young man blurts out that he's incredibly sorry. Todo nearly choked when he heard he'd ended up in the punishment room, and he couldn't believe his friend pulled off 3 of them, reckless as hell, but pure courage. Then the boy rushed to apologize, fully knowing what he did was wrong. At first, Todo was stunned, but he wasn't the type to get mad at a friend who'd blown up defending him. Karuri warned him this could bite back hard, and he snapped back that it wouldn't kill him. Sure, there'd be fallout, but nothing like that, and the moment he realized they'd gotten exactly what they deserved, he felt a whole lot better. The hero still has no clue what to do, stuck in that punishment room, then Eliza bursts in. She told him she was going to meet him anyway, and someone ordered her to bring him food. She figured he'd be bored, so she grabbed her favorite book for him, and he lit up and thanked her. Suddenly, Iris burst in and said she'd grabbed the notebooks he left behind at class. She'd heard everything Ray told her about what happened today, and she didn't think he was wrong at all. She said he handled it like a total badass, and Eliza nodded right along. Iris is convinced she did the right thing, that's her whole belief, while Eliza digs in even harder, buying it completely. Shock hit the boy first. Then his friends crashed in right after. The young man actually believed he was finally saved, and after everything that went down at the academy, time somehow flew by, while the rumors of what happened started fading only after the exams. This year, the students are grinding like crazy because the next exam decides what class they're stuck in. Yeah, pressure is real, and just like Iris, Eliza's one whole grade behind, sitting in 17th. It's all because she's been juggling medical studies, so when it's finally over, they lock in a 2-month summer break. The guy said the prince tried to take Iris on vacation, but she shut him down. And now the prince is drowning in depression, acting so pathetic it's almost painful to watch. Karuri can't stop thinking about the original story, how he remembered her here for the whole summer, and how brutal it must feel to be alone for 2 months straight. He's aching to go see her. Iris thrusts it in his hands and says, "Look at this. These plants are the real deal." The boy asked her what she'd do all summer, and she answered dead serious that she'd stay right here and nurse these plants. The hero caught it instantly, then he grabbed the chance and invited her to come with him to Helen's domain. Iris insisted everything was perfect. She'd seen how incredible the place was, but she only dreamed of going there with the money she'd earned, and Kurori pushed her to chase it with a part-time job. If she could make money while doing it, that would be amazing. She'd also be able to send cash home to her family, so she started weighing it all in her mind. Then she bowed low and promised she'd work her hardest and never cause a single problem. She begged him to watch over her for these 2 months, and she made it clear she's still planning to team up with him afterward, so the hero told her, "Don't fret, I'll handle everything." Then he bolted out to round up the others. They cornered Wayne for answers, quick chat, but the signs say he's coming and his power could seriously tip the scales in their favor. They even bumped into Crossy somehow, but he's swamped all this summer. The hero still hoping he shows up, though deep down he knows he might not be much help. And then with Iris and Wayne right beside them, they marched straight into Helen's domain. Crossy told them straight to the point, "I'm here to say goodbye today." He admitted he has to head back to his hometown for summer break, then thanked them for all the hero lessons and begged them to take care of themselves. And yeah, he said Wayne's doing the same. Karuri hated that Crossy couldn't tag along. Wayne would feel it hard and alone, and then Iris shouted, "Hey hero, we can already see the city from here." He leaned up to the window, stared outside and said, "We're almost there." About half a day ago, they finally peeled out of the academy, and the closer they got to the city, the more their excitement shot up. The hero had heard the city had an amazing seafood spot, and Wayne just couldn't help but grin, because places like that always bring back the best memories. Iris can already feel her gut twist at all the good memories still waiting ahead, like she's about to get sick from them. The guy tells her, "Don't worry." Then he decides the best way to thank Karuri is simple. He'll go wherever he wants to go. The hero nodded along with Wayne, because he knew he was still learning, still gaining, and he just wanted to repay them somehow. Then the girl shot off an apology for being rude and he brushed it off fast. They were friends, so she didn't have to be that polite. They tore into the city. They dug into a meal of steaming boiled fish and stuffed themselves with pure satisfaction. Then Wayne leaned forward and peppered them with questions about what came next on their ride in the carriage. Kururi snapped back that staying the night right here was the smart move, late as hell and the horses were done for. A hotel sat nearby ready and waiting. Iris then chimed in, "Forget it, let's take a walk through the city and figure out what to do next." He nodded, invited Wayne right in, then everything clicked. The owner was busy squaring up his mess, so they had a shot to bolt before he ever noticed them. The girls were buzzing about two seriously handsome guys who'd just shown up, and they even offered massages. Cuddy immediately said, "I wouldn't mind." His friend nodded along, and he admitted he needed his muscles to relax too, but Iris shot it down fast. She begs them not to go, and Wayne can't figure out why she's flying off the handle. Karuri is just as clueless, and he's left guessing it's the fault of those women. Suddenly some random guy yells at the crew to come over, then drops the bomb that they've got a house packed with cuties, but he gets cut off before he can finish. Iris clocked him on the head and he crumpled into unconsciousness. Then the hero begs her to cool down, asking what he even did to her. The guy just can't figure out why she's this upset. Iris snaps that he should forget about this city because she can't stand it. She clocked it fast. When a bunch of girls were around, they liked it. He shot that down, saying he didn't care, and then grinned that it was way more fun when she was there. Iris blurted out an apology for snapping and ruining the whole walk, but the guys shut her down, told her to stop apologizing and look back. A whole skyline sprawled out in front of them. This was the same city they'd just visited, and up here it looked gorgeous, nothing like how she'd feared it would be. Every rooftop and street shimmered under the light, and the heroes urged them, "Let's head back to the hotel." First, they're getting straight into a bath. There's barely anyone around. Iris hears they've been split into separate rooms, then the owner promises he'll line them up with 3 great rooms. Next thing you know, they're brought to the separate bathing area. The girl snapped at the guy not to peek, but the hero was busy spiraling over something else. But don't get it twisted. He's no fool, he's a true gentleman, and there's no way he's letting this chance slip. He'll smash through and reach his goal. Watch the wall, it's 2 meters tall. So he stacks the boxes, and the second he leans on them, they crumble apart way too easily. No way he's reaching the top of that wall like this. Then, out of nowhere, he slipped and hit the ground with a painful crash. Turns out it's way messier than he imagined, and right now all he can think is one wild thought. Did they build this wall just to stop anyone from peeking? He's got absolutely no way out here. This wall is so tall it might as well be impossible. Wayne quizzed the guy on what he was doing, and when Heat made his face look off, the guy snapped back that he was fine, then told Wayne to just ignore it. The guy swears it's insanely relaxing, and Iris is probably obsessed with it too. Meanwhile, the girl chimes in the same thing, pure relaxation. The heroes slam through the streets in their carriage. Then it suddenly jerks to a stop right in the middle of the city. The man lined in and dared them to taste his bread. They barged into the bakery. The air practically screamed, "You're gonna taste something amazing." And the baker leaned in and bragged that his shop's baked goods were famous everywhere. A little girl stepped out, beamed at her friends, and said she was Alice. Then bragged that her dad's bread tasted insanely good and urged them to give it a try. Karuri leaned in and asked, "So what's Caleb, just bread?" The man just smiled and said, "Nah, it's a long story. And that's exactly why it's called Caleb." The hero said yes to taking 4, then asked where they could grab food, and the man shot back his thanks for the purchase before escorting him straight to the dining area. while the hero couldn't shake this weird gut feeling that this girl was low-key trying to get him to talk. Iris clocked it right away. Bread. Karuri grinned and said, "We call it bread because of how long it is." They tore into the bread and Iris smiled, wishing them bon appetit. The bread came out perfectly crispy, like it was made for crunching. "It's seriously delicious." The heroes literally nodded in agreement. Suddenly they spotted something irresistible. Honey was pouring out of it, golden and glorious, so breathtaking the hero couldn't even put it into words. He says the bread tastes like honey, and Wayne and Iris back him up on the spot. So the baker grins, thanks them for sticking around, and pours them a cup of black tea. Karuri figured this was the perfect moment. Just enough lemon juice to snap him awake and cool his head. But he had no idea how long he could stretch this honeyed rhythm before it ran out. Alice tells them to hold up, trust the bread, and wait, because it's about to work. The hero's like, "Even one more bite of honey and I'll regret it." But he can't bring himself to be rude to a little girl, so he goes for another bite anyway. Then the bread flips the script. First it hits with a gentle crunch and sweet honeyed vibes, then black tea drifts in, and right at the end those salty notes finally crash the party. This bread looks suspiciously perfect, so Iris spotted the moment something slipped out. That little slip of paper, "They finished the bread," sends her into pure happiness for some reason. Even that simple line, "This bread doesn't just fill your stomach, it warms your heart," and the hero can't believe how much love was baked into every bite, so now he wants to write his own. Wayne's inscription brags that his belly's full and his heart's at peace, pure kindness in ink, and the hero's inscription declares that starting today, he's a breadfucker. Alice tells him he's got a winning ticket, and now he's itching to find out exactly what he won. Karuri raves that it's insanely tasty, then he's like, "I'm grabbing 4 more right now so I can munch them on the way." The baker told him that the bread blew up in popularity, so they've got to cap orders per person, meaning they won't sell him anything. The hero's heart sank with pity, so he thanked him for that amazing bread. The friends packed up and decided to go, while Alice whipped around to face her father and said they'd enjoyed it so much, refusing to sell them anything else would be cruel. The man snapped back that they had no choice. She already knows, but the look on her brother's face when he pulled out the winning ticket, pure joy shining through. And right then, pride hits her like a spark. She feels proud she works in this shop. She can't wait to keep serving them, selling them bread, pushing them to grab as much as they want. She spun to her husband and told him she'd never seen their daughter like this, grown up in a way that took her breath away. Then pleaded, "Just let me handle it this once, please," and the baker finally realized. His little girl had truly come into her own. The man blurted that they still had 33 loaves of bread left, so they could grab as many as they wanted. The hero grumbled that if it weren't for Alice, they'd never have seen the wonder of bread, and they definitely wouldn't have been able to buy more. All right, now it was his turn to step up and take the stage. Kokuri grabbed the whole set of 33, and Wayne immediately asked, "So what do we do with it?" 33 pieces is a mountain, Iris said, promising she'd help them finish it. While the guy just couldn't wrap his head around why he ever bought all 33, like his mind totally snapped in that moment. They watched the river spread wide and Kujiri grinned. "We're almost at Helen's lands. Next stop, Helen's estate." On a trip to Helen's domain, inside the castle where the Arc-Cudens live, Rasha Cuden and Maria Cuden got into a furious shouting match. Then Maria dropped to her knees, clutching her stomach, screaming that she was in agony. But she's acting because she's actually the princess of the Cuden family. She can't stand the idea of wasting her vacation on dull chatter, but straight up running away isn't an option either. Princesses don't do that. Rasha could be suspicious, sure, but he's not supposed to cause trouble. Summer vacation only shows up once a year. She's an honor student who's #1 in everything, gifted, athletic, and so lovable that everyone can't help but adore her. But her life feels like a non-stop lullaby. No adventure, no thrill, no rival to spar with, no one to laugh with, and then Rasha drops the bomb. They're headed straight for Helen's domain. The girl is dead sure she has to get there no matter what. Irina, the princess from the neighboring kingdom, strides up to Maria and asks how she's really feeling. Because she's pretty sure Maria's got intestinal trouble, and she even worries she might be hurting her without meaning to. Maria tried to tell him she was okay, then the very next second, agony ripped through her and she screamed. Irina snapped that a doctor must be called and promised she'd handle things in the meantime. The girl thanked her but insisted Irina shouldn't touch a thing until the doctor showed up. The princess shot back that she couldn't do that, then she grabbed her belly and felt it, slightly puffed up. She told Maria to ditch her pride and just pass gas, but Maria panicked, thinking her name would get dragged through rumors about a stomach ache. Rasha tells Irina, "Don't obsess over your sister, she's just like that." And Irina fires back, "What do you mean? You're her brother, so you've got every right to worry about her too." Tension snapped between them, and the girl swallowed her guilt as she silently apologized to her brother. She has to hold on a bit longer, because if he spots her stomach suddenly cramping out of nowhere, everything's going to spiral fast. The maid already fetched a doctor, and Maria doesn't think Princess Irina will come knocking again. The doctor just shook his head and couldn't crack what was causing their pain, and then he told her she'd have to stay in bed for a while. Everyone's convinced she's lying, holed up in her room, so while that's happening she'll slip out quietly with Rasha to Helen. Next, they just need to send Irina and the others back, and then they can finally have fun. The girl even said the pain had eased some and she needed to rest. Princess Irina told her to wait, then admitted she was still worried about the girl and decided to personally walk her all the way to her room. Maria fought back against it, but the girl wouldn't let her. She insisted that Maria was too weakened to go alone, swore they needed an escort, and then hit her with the truth. She was a princess, so someone had to keep a close watch. The girl sprawls in bed, gushing about how kind she is while secretly driving herself crazy with how annoying she can be. Then Irina blurts that she's pulled this stunt again and again, and the princess is left utterly baffled. She knows the princess's stomach hurts absolutely nothing, and when the princess tries to explain herself, she cuts in fast, "Don't worry, I won't push you." Back when she was little, she pulled the same excuse again and again, because she was bored out of her mind and desperate to escape, and saying it in front of everyone would only stir up trouble. Now she's about to do it all over again. Maria beamed and urged her friend to make a clean getaway. Irina lined in and demanded to know where they were headed. She brought up Helen's domain, where hot springs blast the whole place, and said this summer they built a resort there just to crank the fun up to the max. Then she turned to Irina and asked what her wish was, and Irina nodded but immediately demanded, "Yeah, but how are we getting out?" The girl snapped back that they'd bolt out through the window. Then Maria couldn't explain the strange, tight twist in her chest. She's buzzing like her whole world just clicked into place. This is pure, unfiltered fun, and it might be the very first time in her life she's met someone she can actually laugh with. She feels totally alive whenever she's by his side. Irina grinned, then hurried downstairs to catch up with her friend. They met up with Rasha. Then her sister marched in and told her brother that she and Irina were tagging along with him. The boy's worry snapped into place. What was happening? After all, she was the princess of a neighboring country, and if she vanished out of nowhere, chaos would erupt everywhere. Irina insisted nothing was wrong, saying she'd been given permission to roam through Kuden for 2 full months. That troublesome enemy turned around overnight and joined their party as an adventurer. Now nobody's stopping her, ever again. Irina even begged him to watch over her, and Maria's already gearing up to have the time of her life during the holidays. They agreed to use their first names right away, and Rasha still can't figure out how they slipped out of the nurse's quarters, because there's a guard posted at the door. Maria told them they'd rappelled down the window on a rope, and Mom swore she could never pull it off. Then Irina admitted she hadn't had real fun in ages before, out of nowhere, someone demanded to join them. Some random dude burst into the carriage and blurted that he was heading for Helen too. The girl realized this time Rasha would have to watch 3 people at once, and that gave them a real shot to slip away. Then Irina chimed in, asking what she was scheming this time. She leaned in and told her friend, "Be ready any minute, we're running," then promised, "I'll show you how princesses are really supposed to have fun." She demanded when they'd finally do it, and her smile said, "When the moment hits, we'll slip out together," even though everyone would still track them down later, because for a day or two, they'd get to steal time and have fun side by side. Irina shouted that it'd be pure thrill to leap from the carriage at that speed, but Maria snapped back that if they jumped right now, they'd get smashed. So they decided to wait until the carriage finally stopped, because Maria knew these streets way better, meaning she'd be the safer, faster runner. Rasha said there was a rest stop up ahead and they'd grab something to eat before rolling on, but the girls instantly saw it as their opening, and for once, everything was lining up perfectly. All that's left is to move straight up. The guy tells him the Helen's estate waits farther down the road. The girls leapt out of the carriage, and now they had to sprint before it was too late. Edina told her friend to take her anywhere she wanted, and Maria swears it worked, though she can't stop noticing how painfully naive Russia seems. They did it, she was unstoppable and nobody could stop her. Irina shouted that her plan was genius, then flexed her moves like they were nothing, one smooth, crazy somersault. When her friend asked how, she just said she'd practiced non-stop, and if they practice too, they can pull it off just like her. Now they were charging toward the hot springs, and Irina blurted out, "Do you know where it is?" Only for her to grin and say she carried the map right in her head. Every time Irina admires her, warm feelings hit her like a spark. Could this be what friendship really is? Then Irina straight up asks, if we get lost, would we truly end up sleeping on the street? The girl tells her don't freak out, because she knows exactly how to survive out there. They decided to hit the hot springs, surrounded by a riot of gorgeous flowers, so she better be ready. Plopping down at the hot springs, Irina blurts out that she had no idea a place like this even existed. Maria can't stop smiling, Whoever built this place must be pure kindness, because she finally gets to unwind and relax here. She heard it was the ruler of Helen's son who cooked up the whole thing. The girls burst into the water, splashing like crazy. Irina asked what they'd do after the bath, and the princess shot back, "Let's grab something to eat." Irina agreed, then sighed because Grandpa always chewed her out for it. Luckily, an entertainment area sat nearby, and Maria said she'd take her there. And when you think about it, it's been way too long since she's hung out with other girls. Honestly, that's kinda strange. But she's also having the most fun ever. The girls grabbed 2 sizzling pork kebabs and brought them home. Irina was handed yet another offer by the salesman, and she smiled and thanked him. Then Maria pressed her for the secret, and the princess leaned in, saying men are so easy to play. You've got to prove you've got a sweet side. Maria doesn't know how. Dad told her that when 2 people respect each other, that's friendship. And Irina, she thought they'd been friends from the very beginning. When she's happy, that's probably what friendship feels like. Like the time she totally pranked Dad by painting his face, and it was pure fun. But this wasn't any ordinary kind of fun, this was her time to flex. She decided to show off her special talent, and the next stop was the shooting range. Maria ripped the trigger and started firing. But the toy didn't budge, so she erupted, screaming at the salesman that it had fallen, calling it fraud. He told her to calm down. Irina snapped back, "Try it too." The princess stared at how clumsy she'd looked with that gun, so why did she suddenly have the nerve to act like she owned the moment? Then the girl fired. She clocked the salesman, and Irina's cheeks flared red as she admitted she'd been watching him the whole time, which was why she'd missed. He cringed with embarrassment, then decided to sweep her off her feet, so he handed her a hair clip. Maria lit up, calling him simply delightful. But why would he have a plan like that? She shrugged and said it was way easier than it looked. Men are so painfully easy to distract. Now they're rocking matching hair clips, and you can bet that's going to turn into a sweet little memory. They decided to hit the shops, and she couldn't help it. She was already thrilled, thinking of the awesome memories they'd make. But they got trapped in that pavilion where you have to snatch goldfish from the tank, trying so hard to catch something, then bam, they ended up being the ones caught instead. Let's rewind to when the princesses were still locked inside the castle. Kudori's heart soars now that she's finally back. Iris gasps that the river is absolutely stunning, like a place straight out of a dream. Then Wayne chimes in that the fishing here is straight up incredible. He wanted to stay put and finally rest, so the guy urged them to camp right here. Night might turn chilly, but they had blankets, and they'd snag some fish, fry them up, and call it a win. The hero even went ahead and started crafting fishing gear. Wayne hauled in a load of firewood while Iris trekked over and grabbed fishing line from the stagecoach. Then they bent sharp little hooks out of the nails they had. Sure, they were barbless, but they'd still get the job done. They somehow forged fishing rods, and Curare immediately fired off the question, "So what are we gonna use?" Wayne just grinned and said he'd bite on anything that smelled good, so they went with dried meat. They dropped into their seats and started fishing, and the hero's face lit up with pure, unstoppable joy. Iris suddenly saw it. This boy now looked just like her grandfather. He told her they were still standing right on the border of Helen's domain, and Iris pressed him. What was the capital like back then? The moment he looked at her, she knew. His answer said it was even more breathtaking than she imagined. Curare finally felt a tug, like he'd hooked something huge. Then it slipped away right at the worst moment. Turns out guys like them struggle to land fish with a barbless hook. The girl never even got a bite, so he got away lucky. Now the hero's kicking himself, thinking, if I'd been smarter, I would have snatched it. But hey, at least this sting fuels him, because next time, he's catching it for sure. Iris was this close to landing the fish, but it slipped off the hook at the last second, and the guy just grinned like he'd been waiting for it. Then the girl spotted Wayne wasn't there and demanded to know where he'd vanished, and Curare snapped that he must have gotten lost in fishing and forgot all about him. Because Wayne wasn't on the shore, there was no way he fell into the river, and that absence felt downright wrong. Suddenly, the boy burst out of the water holding a massive fish, hoping it would be plenty for everyone. Then the hero grinned and said, "We've got more than enough." Trouble was, the sky was fading, and they had to spark a fire before night hit. They pitched camp in a blur, then huddled up and started trading hungry ideas about what to eat. Then they crashed into bed and called it a night. Iris gasped that the stars looked breathtaking, Wayne smiled and said she was beautiful too, and Curare and the girl froze in shock. But he's already asleep, and the hero just assumes he'd end up like this, sure he'll be popular any second, while Iris clocks it instantly. Meanwhile, Kudori can't stop thinking about how lonely Vane would be without Crassie, even though right now, he's clearly having the time of his life. The girl wished she could be that brutally honest too, and the boy told her to hit the sheets. Then he dropped off to sleep, already thinking that tomorrow he'd finally go back home. After a solid night's sleep, they woke up charged and ready, jumped into the carriage and rode straight to his place. Then the closer they got, the more people started piling in around them. They spotted Curare and burst over to greet him, and Iris blurted that she never knew he was that popular. Like the hero didn't even realize they'd still remembered him until this moment. Still, something feels off, really off. At first, he was totally thrown off by how wildly everyone greeted him with that much energy. Then it hit him, they weren't just being friendly, they genuinely loved him. They rolled in around noon, and Kurori saw it right away. Almost nothing had changed while he was gone. Somebody called his name, and he bolted over just to pull the boy into a tight hug. Because the second that kid came back, pure relief flooded over him. It didn't look like those tears were joy at all. The boy turned and proudly introduced his friends, Iris and Wayne, his classmates from the academy, and he made it clear they'd be spending their whole summer vacation right here. The man lit up when he met them, and Wayne stepped in to greet him. Then he flinched, spun toward Iris, and blurted that she was dating one of them. Iris snapped back that wasn't true. Kurori doesn't have a clue what her father's up to. It's been a while, sure, but this time he's acting wildly off. He leans toward his girl and whispers that she could become queen, then he tells her in no uncertain terms not to shame the family. And then it hit him, this towering guy wasn't just some soldier. He was the commander-in-chief of the Imperial Army's son. He crumpled to his knees and his son shot up, asking, "What's wrong?" His father choked out that he couldn't take it anymore. Everything had been piling up here nonstop, and at this point, even his heart couldn't keep up. Karuri tells him, "Don't panic. As long as he's here, he'll step in and sort out his mess," because his father always knew his son wouldn't ditch him when things get rough. But right now he's swamped, running on fumes, so he's throwing it all to Karuri. He'd already put in so much work before he even left, and yeah, there was still tons left to do. Then Dad dropped it all on his shoulders like it was nothing. The hero snapped that his father should go relax in the hot springs, and Dad grinned and agreed, dumping the whole mess onto his son and walking off. The mansion's totally his, so he's leaving, and Kurori is left reeling in pure shock. Dad was serious, there's no backing out now. He started this mess, so he's the one who has to clean it up. He told his friends he hadn't even thought about work, so for now they can do whatever they want and he'll figure something out later. Wayne said he had nothing much going on, so he'd step in and help, and the hero thanked him. Then wasted no time heading out to see what needed doing, while for now he focused on figuring out the next task. The resort is booming and everyone's flocking to the city, but the infrastructure can't handle the sudden rush. And since most newcomers are broke and can't afford to build homes, the streets start falling into a serious hygiene nightmare. Everything spirals from overpopulation, and he never saw it coming. The estate's development is booming, everything's clicking. Sure, not everyone's got a home yet, but every single person's got a job because they need hands everywhere. Newcomers slide right into work, and agriculture is skyrocketing too, fueled by all these fresh helpers. Right now, the real nightmare is housing. Because building homes takes serious money, and he's got to watch over the property too, plus he needs people on the ground, not just a plan. Turns out it's way more tangled than he ever imagined. He had zero time to freak out, this was go time. So he picked the safe, decided to borrow the money Wayne had, and then Wayne announced that he'd got a visitor. It was Lotso, and this wasn't just any reunion because he helped build the resort itself. They both lit up and greeted each other. Everyone in their world called him the most trusted man around, and the moment the boy heard he was back, he hurried over. Because the guy had answers and reports that mattered, plus the info they needed to kick off the season right. So the young man threw the door open and invited him in. They chewed the whole thing over for ages, until he insisted they should finally talk it out. Right when the moment hit, Lotso's timing landed perfectly because he'd been plotting all along, and now he wanted to use that money to build homes people could get for free. Kurori grilled him for his take, and he snapped back that if things went that way, folks who pay for homes with their own money would start green with envy. Then the hero nodded in agreement. The guy said don't give the houses away, sell them cheaper than usual, and then complaints would stay quiet. But that's when the hero in the red got stuck wearing the spotlight. The guy shrugged like it was totally no big deal. They dove straight into business. Lotso took command and would handle recruiting the builders. The boy planned to badger his brothers into doing his work, and when he walked out, Kurori couldn't help but think, of course, he was just magnificent. Then Iris and Vane stormed in and the girl demanded, "So, have you figured out what you're doing?" Wayne and Karuri took on the muscle work, while he pushed to get Iris stuck with the paperwork. And that very day, they kicked off a huge, no-holds-barred plan. Requests to build a house started rolling in from just about everyone. While rumors ripped through the air, the crowd swelled by the second. Meanwhile, Lotso and Iris were stuck knee-deep in contracts and paperwork for the homeless. Over 100 people threw themselves into building it, him included, even the land's owner, so everyone felt driven and pushed harder than ever before. And for an entire month of the 2 summer holidays, they spent every single day on construction. Curate thrust a bag of money into Lotso's hands, calling it just a tiny piece of his gratitude, and begs him to take it. Then Lotso beams that it's an incredible honor, thanks the hero, and swears that as long as this young man rules these lands, everything will thrive. He tells him to call anytime he needs help. Then he's ready to head out when Iris suddenly calls his name. She asked if they'd meet again and he promised, if Karudi invited him he'd come, no doubt about it. But she wasn't buying that. Something else was brewing in her head, so she forced out a goodbye and walked away. Curry can't even process what just hit him. He stepped up and handed her her award, and she thanked him with a bright smile, then blushed all over again, stealing another look toward the door. Next up for the award was Wayne, and he tried to shrug it off like he didn't want it. Then the hero stepped in and wouldn't let him refuse. Then he fired off the question to his friend, why is Iris acting like this? And the friend just shrugged, saying he had no clue. So Karuri went straight to the source and confronted the girl herself, asking what was really going on. The girl blurted that she'd never felt anything like this before, and the guys went completely wide-eyed. The hero asks her to tell him what happened, and she blurts that it's the first time in her life she's ever met someone this caring and dependable. Then the guy clocks it instantly. Her diagnosis is that she's in love. He can't wrap his head around how this even happened. People are talking about Lotso like he matters, and he's just a side character. So how the heck is this possible? Karuri begs Vane to find a way to make it happen, and Vane snaps back that he doesn't even know how. Because the hero's mind is totally blank with nothing else to offer. They're just two clueless guys who can't seem to treat women right. Then suddenly there's this girl, completely head over heels and madly in love with them. He told her to head to the holiday villa, Lotso would be waiting there, but she shot back that she had zero reason to go. Even the untouchable Wayne can't hide how worried she is. And the hero, instead of wasting time, just plans to see him again and decides to ask if he'll tag along. That's exactly how a holiday romance hits, sweet for a second, then chaos. If this keeps going, Iris might not even make it back from vacation with them, so what's he supposed to do now? He might as well drop to his knees and beg Prince Ark for forgiveness. They spotted Lotso staring at them from the window. The girl asked, "Is my hair okay?" And the hero said, "Yeah, you're fine," but she still looked like she was fighting nerves. A furious ring blasted from the door like it meant business. For the first time, Kuriri snapped to attention the moment the bell rang, like his heart had been caught off guard. Had he fallen for someone, he rushed in and greeted Lotso. The hero's like, "Okay, I really do have a nice face and a legit good guy aura." And he starts thinking he should bring them together. These two totally seem like good people. Then the young man shows up with a report from the holiday villa. While he was still here, they were pushing to get everything done fast, real fast. Kuriri swore it would be convenient in every way, period. He glanced at Iris and there she was, all housewife mode. Like she'd locked in her role, even if you could still call her just a girl, it didn't change a thing. She couldn't stop wishing she could be closer, and Lotso leaned in, insisting the hero focus hard on it. Seeing Iris's tension spike, he stepped in to help, spun toward her, and told her Lotso had something urgent to report. Something she absolutely needed to know. He pulled the door open and invited her inside to listen, and she burst into an instant, rosy blush. She slid into the seat opposite him and stared at him like he'd just grown a second head, so he shot back, confused, "Why are you looking at me like that? Can't you see Lotso sitting right next to me?" The boy wrapped up his report and Karuri thanked him like it mattered, because everything ran smoother when people like him showed up. Iris jumped in, calling Lotso absolutely amazing. He smiled, said his thanks, and headed out before the moment could fade. Karuri watched the girl's anger spill over, and he knew he couldn't back out. So he told Lotso to stay put for a bit, and when Lotso tried to protest, the young man yanked him onto the sofa. The hero promised he'd grab some food, so they could sit tight and talk for a bit, and the young man quickly thanked him for the offer. Kururi's begging for any asterisk kind of outcome, while Vane's already convinced the hero slipped away. He said he figured his presence would only embarrass Iris, but Wayne snapped back that a true hero wouldn't talk like that, because yeah, in a way, he really did run away. They couldn't shake the feeling something was off, so the guys shot each other looks, then went to investigate. Because whatever they found, it looked like they were having a blast, and for once they didn't have to worry anymore. Grudy blurted, asking if spying on them was really okay, and Wayne snapped back that it was straight-up bad manners. They decided to spar, and Wayne couldn't help but praise the hero's insane sword skills. Yururi claimed the same thing about his technique. Then they slammed into each other and crossed blades. They clasped hands, nodding like, "Man, that was a hell of a fight." And Iris and Lotso erupted into applause. Lotso decided he was done, he'd had his fill of rest and was ready to leave. As soon as he walked out, Kurudhi leaned in and demanded to know what they'd been talking about. Iris said she'd only talked about the hero, and he got the feeling she didn't seem bothered at all. Then he admitted he was starving after training and pushed them to grab lunch. The very next day, the young man stepped outside and threw a surprised look at the beautiful sky, while the carriage rumbled on, charging straight for the mansion. Kuriri almost forgot until it hit him. Rasha was coming back today and it was his brother. Raxa and Karuri met face to face, and he immediately made a wild guess. He thought Iris was his friend's lover, only to be wrong. Then he leaned in and admitted he'd come here solo until life shoved something unexpected into his plans. The hero blurted that something felt terribly wrong, then Roxas shot back, "I'm here, and my brother and sister came with me. Maria's in town right now with a friend, while her brother is still stuck on the boat, so when Curare and his father catch wind of it, they're thrown for a loop. Curare's convinced the prince is here for Iris, and from what he's seeing, Rox doesn't realize any of it, but hey, that's not on him. His brother only dragged himself here for pure greed." The father grabbed his son's shoulders and ordered him to leave right now. His whole hope was riding on him. Ark jumped out of the carriage and stared at the Helen lands, totally blown away. He'd come here to be the first prince after all. Cuterty couldn't shake the feeling that all Ark was thinking about was Iris. Ark even thanked him for the compliment. The prince clocked the lord's absence in an instant, and the young man hurried in to explain. He had to bolt because a sudden stomach ache hit him hard, but he'd handle everything, and Ark was counting on him. Ruxa snapped an apology for the trouble, then admitted her brother could be a handful. Yet he still begged her to look after him. Kujiri couldn't shake the thought of what it's like to live with someone that weird, and even knowing why she came, he knew he had to ask properly. He told the Rasa clan to hold up inside, and when the door shut, Iris and Vane were already there. The first prince stiffened like a trap had sprung. Then it hit the young man this official visit was just a cover. All he had to do was pretend he came for fun. Roxa thanked him, then bolted toward Iris, who was waving like crazy at him. Ark spun toward the hero and thrust an envelope into his hands, telling him to deliver it to the man, no questions asked. Garuri's pretty sure it's from Eliza, and he can't figure out why his chest lights up the moment he gets her letter. Like, why does that even feel so good? It's just strange. The hero and Ark rattle along in a carriage, and the young man's already spiraling, thinking they've got nothing to say, even though he knows he needs a little rest too. The prince snapped the silence first and demanded to know why Wayne and Iris had shown up here. Then Wayne said they were here to see them and make a little money. And all the while, because Iris had been gone for so long, his mind kept getting pulled straight back to her. He's desperate to see them together, but his nerves keep him stuck. So he starts questioning whether he should even bother helping in the first place. He doesn't even bother with words. He just shoots Iris a quick look, and the prince wrestles with his courage like it's a final boss. Oh, and Iris is totally hooked on another guy right now. Talk about brutal bad luck. What would happen if the prince found out? Curare invited him to her home to taste a sweet watermelon berry, and the prince said yes right away. He couldn't wait to see her. Rasa, Iris, and Wayne chowed down on juicy watermelon, laughing and enjoying every bite. The second prince sprinted over to greet his brother and their friend, and Curare started tossing out a few changes to the original plan. Because honestly, it sounded way better if they all ate together. Raxa led the way and pulled them right to the table. As the boy chomped into that sweet watermelon, he couldn't stop smiling. Then Iris leaned in and told him he could spit those things super far. Karuri almost blurted, "She's a girl, she shouldn't do that." But the fun on her face was too real, so he let it ride, and then he couldn't stop wondering what the prince's mood was really doing. Depression clawed at him. This was his first time being sidelined, with a prince's status on his back, and a normal girl might have leaned in for comfort. But Iris wouldn't budge. She was ice cold. He's got the looks and the money to burn, but the moment he tries to speak to her, he never even gets a shot. Did I miss the moment they started turning on me? When did that even happen? Curry swore he'd heard the prince and Iris go way back, like they've been inseparable for ages, always showing up together at school, and Ark was sure the hero kept getting wrapped up with her too. Iris tells him don't hold back, and the reason hits hard because they're in the same class. The prince got disarmed. Then Ruxa slid in, saying that even though it was their first meeting of the day, he'd found her charming and wanted to be friends, and Iris saw zero reason to say no. Karuri can't stand the suspense anymore. She's pushing Ark to get out of there right now. He stumbled out of the bathhouse feeling way more wrecked than normal. After everything that went down, the prince had been wandering around like a dead man walking, and the whole day had felt like one headache after another. Thank God it was over. Then Raxa showed up. He thanked the hero for taking care of his brother, even though he'd never meant to drag him into this. And yeah, it looked like Ark's eyes were locking onto Iris. The boy tells the younger man, don't stress over your brother's feelings, go after your love with everything you've got. And he's dead sure he and Iris are meant for each other. Kururi feels like there's a big misunderstanding between them. He even insists the young man has it all wrong. But the truth is, that story doesn't hold up. Iris was nothing but kind, sure. But romance had never crossed his mind until she overheard their conversation. Now Raxa gets it all clear in his head, everything clicks and he finally feels way better. But he's wiped out, itching to head back, so he tells the hero to come with him. The hero says, I just need some fresh air first, then promises he'll return later. Kururi is sprawled on the grass when someone suddenly closes in on him. It was Iris, and he practically swept her off her feet, inviting her to share a night so warm and peaceful it felt made just for them. They've been together for months now, and that awkward vibe is totally gone. He's comfortable in her presence, like he's found his place. And honestly, it feels like their friendship is only getting stronger because something bigger could be on the horizon. Iris finally admitted she'd overheard their recent talk, him and Raska. And when the dust settled, she realized the hero doesn't see her as a woman at all. But sometimes she couldn't help dreaming about being his lover. And that thought hit him like a shock because the guy was completely stunned. But she laughed it off, told him good night, and slipped away, leaving the hero completely clueless. Was that some kind of teasing? Yeah, that's the vibe. She totally has a thing for him, lots. He tried to talk himself into believing those arguments, but sleep wouldn't touch him, like he was still too immature to shut his brain off. And yeah, he's dying to know what's inside this letter. Sure, it's nothing like the last one. And he's praying that everyone's okay. In her letter, Eliza straight up asks how he's been in his hometown, what he's feeling, whether he's sick, if he's actually eating right, and even if he brushes his teeth every single day. Then she can't help but hope he stays far away from any dangerous adventures. Cuddy felt it wasn't really a message at all. It read like a letter from his mother. And once he finished it, this weird, heavy emptiness just clung to him. In the capital, the girl can't stand the heat. Everything feels suffocatingly wrong. Even her own father keeps chowing down on frozen fruits every single day, and Kurudri swears it feels like her sister is spilling every nasty detail about what's going on inside their family. Lately, bodies have been turning up dead, and the heat is the prime suspect. 7 people in total have fallen to it, and it's terrifying. Even with wives and kids at home, they still flirted with random women, total scoundrels. And yeah, of course they got what was coming. The big suspect is still out there, and there's a real chance she's on his property right now. The hero can't shake the feeling she's dodging way too fast, like she's got nothing real to say, but also like she's trying to drop a clue. He swears he's not a cheater, and honestly, he doesn't even have a girlfriend. Eliza straight up asks him how he spends his free time. It was painfully clear she was locked in on everything they were doing. Why couldn't she just stop making it so obvious? Reading her mind felt way too easy, and this letter was downright fun to go through, too, yet she still wanted to keep talking to him about everything, even as she treated his health like the priority that mattered most. The hero scribbled back to her, saying it was wild and scorching there, but still easier to handle than the capital. Because every victim was really a traitor, and that was the terrifying truth. They only got what they deserved. He closed the letter and figured that was it. At last, he could crash and finally get some sleep. The prince stayed crushed and gloomy, and the hero couldn't stand seeing him like that. So he rushed him straight into the city. That prince is drop-dead handsome, sharp as a tack too, and everyone treats him like he can do whatever he wants. And that's exactly why the lovely girls can't stop staring. Kururi's certain that just a little attention from them will snap Ark back to his senses. A girl stormed up to them, and instead of bowing to the prince, she called out to the protagonist, right to his face, and the boy froze in pure shock. She'd been admiring him for ages and was dying to shake his hand, and the other girls immediately jumped in, backing her up with the same excited agreement. Kururi's flattered, sure, but that's not the real reason he walked in. He's still baffled at how he somehow pulled in all this attention. Ark's a stunningly handsome man, and when he goes quiet, it's like beauty hits the room like lightning. So tell me why the hero steals all the attention. So is this really what they mean when they say there's a difference between home and foreign soil? But wait, there's another reason they're treating him like this. And that's the brutal difference in how everyone sees them. Because the future lord, handsome and backed by the whole population, stands tall like destiny, while Ark, also good-looking, comes with an origin no one can pin down. The prince can't take it anymore. He snaps and turns away, like it's too much to watch. Karuri bowed and apologized to the girls, but they told him they had to wrap up their handshakes for the day, and he still had a mountain of stuff to show his comrade. Ark couldn't even process when that happened, because jealousy was burning hot in his chest. He figured the hero must have shared something with Eliza. After all, she handed him the letter. Kururi snapped that he was way off. It was nothing more than a proper hello. And the prince couldn't believe when he started feeling this crushed and pathetic. Eliza had trailed him for so long it felt inevitable. But now it's all gone, wiped from his life and buried in the past. Whenever he tries to remember, it's like she was the only beam of light cutting through his darkest night, and Kururi even said everything was crystal clear to him. Art summons the hero, Lucky, then Lucky clicks with Iris fast and keeps getting sweet letters from Eliza. So it's no surprise he's slowly but surely taking over everyone who matters to him. The hero finally clocks the truth. This prince will never take a single word about love. And to make it worse, his first rejection shattered him right from the one he loved. He thought girls love getting gifts, so if I've got someone in mind, I should try. But then he admitted there wasn't anyone like that, and he still couldn't forget how his last attempt ended in rejection and turned the whole relationship sour. Karuri leaned in and demanded to know what he'd handed her. He shot back, a diamond necklace, and the hero's voice just vanished, leaving the prince utterly flustered. He demanded, "Come on, why does this feel so strange?" As doubt gnawed at him. Had his sense of beauty finally gone out of date, and did he lose the ability to get what modern fashion was all about? He tells him to just be more simple, because an expensive gift like that would totally freak out an ordinary girl, especially one he barely even knows. Ark can't make sense of human feelings. How are they even built? Humans scare him, and now it looks like the prince is terrified of people too. So the hero steps in, ready to give him some much-needed advice. One day he handed a strange girl a single flower, and her smile lit up the whole place. The prince joked, "If that's all it takes, just give her a whole garden," and the boy quickly shot back, "No, I only need one." For those prince, that just doesn't cut it. Kurori bragged that their territory was packed with rare flowers, and if he could snag the prettiest one, he'd have every girl grinning from ear to ear. Seeing the prince's bright, happy face, the hero suddenly realized he needed to stop teasing him. They burst into the forest. He marched the prince straight to the biggest garden on his estate, where Hamyo blooms, and every single petal flashes a one-of-a-kind color. People call it the miracle of today, the flower meaning that stills the heart. Ark can feel his strength snapping back into place, and hope burns in his chest. He's ready to win, so he turns and gratefully thanks Kurori. 3 days later he demands, "Leave it all to me," and the hero can't stop thinking about heading home. The prince never found the flower, and it felt like spring itself had vanished from his life. Roxa admitted he hadn't seen his brother like this in forever. It looked like the prince's confidence had hit the edge of collapse, so the hero turned to Roxa for help, and she suggested inviting him to a hot spring and scattering fruit there, and that simple plan instantly lit a fire back in his morale. Yururi thanked the boy for the offer, then pressed him to trust her, right before she spun to Ark and invited him to the hot springs. Kai refused. The young man swore there were tons of fruits to munch and take a breather, so the hero led him straight to the best local hot springs. And yeah, it totally looked like the plan was working. Ark shot an apology for today, eyes still cast down like the weight hadn't lifted yet, and they couldn't just stop there. He swore he'd feel brand new once they hit the hot springs, so he already had fruit brought ahead of time, ready to be scattered there so he could gorge himself without holding back. They pressed their palms to each other's backs, then slid down into the water and started settling in. Behind the wall, the girls were whispering about their bodies, and Kudri felt like he'd leased the whole building, yet that female section was still busy, like it hadn't stopped working. The prince demanded why he hadn't booked the whole place, and the guy snapped back that they left the ladies' section exposed, sending Ark's gut into knots. Then the girl grinned and compared her breasts to a watermelon, and the boys went wide-eyed, totally flustered and blushing like crazy. The prince practically begged to hold the watermelon, his face flushing bright red as the monster-sized berry sat there, enormous and unbelievable. Then the girls started sizing themselves up like oranges. A little heavy, but not too heavy, they joked, and honestly, a ton of guys loved that exact size. Even Ark nodded along and said they were right, calling it surprisingly comfy. Is it really true men think about the same things? The prince mused. Then he flashed a huge smile, loved every second here, thanked the hero for bringing him in, and already started thinking about how he'd leave. Kuriori pressed the prince, asking if he'd be satisfied with only their voices. The prince shot back that without seeing them, all anyone could do was soak up the words. But the boy snapped that his comrade was wrong, he'd done this before. Kuriori begs not to get the wrong idea, fails instantly, then Ark asks, is it going to be the same disaster this time? And the hero snaps back, no, this is different. 2 of them are in play so they can pull it off, and they break out the shoulder rider tactic. Ark snaps, I can't see a thing. The fog swallows his whole view. He's so close to the Forbidden Garden, if only he could rise a little higher, just a bit more. He pointed to a bucket nearby and said they could use it, and Karuri's heart sank. She couldn't stop worrying about whether her hard work for the prince was going to be enough. He warns that if they do it, they'll probably slip and eat pavement, but Ark snaps back that even if that disaster hits, they've come too far to turn around now. They decide to do it, because the prince can see everything now and nothing will block his view. The hero begs him to calm down, but he's struggling to keep his balance. But when he finally turned the corner, the other side was empty, no one. He should have seen it coming. And the wild thing, they were screaming so loud that getting spotted was basically inevitable. Bad luck strikes, looks like they're walking away empty-handed, and yeah, the Forbidden Garden is still out of reach. But the prince can't stop smiling, and Kurori's not focused on that at all. She's worried about something else. They'll stay put for a couple minutes, then drop hard to the ground. The prince doesn't have to sweat because the hero's got this and won't let a scratch land on him. When he goes down, he'll slam the prince flying straight toward the water. No choice, he has to do it. He's getting weaker by the second, and he can't keep this state going any longer. They dropped down hard, and that same day they swore off trying to sneak a peek ever again. Roxa rushes back to Kurori and apologizes for the whole mess she caused. He tells him don't worry. After all, he didn't make them. The boy swears he'll come alone next time, and he puts his trust in that promise. Now it's time for him and Ark to finally move on. Roxa poured out her thanks, and just like that, they were gone already. Iris blinked and realized the two of them had disappeared. The place felt empty and cold. The girl looked heartbroken, like Roxa's absence hollowed out the air, and it was as if the prince she once saw in him had vanished from her world. She couldn't stop wondering when they'd show up again. Mr. Roxa was always swamped, so maybe he'd finally be on winter break. And Ark wasn't around anymore, not in this world. So they stepped into the house. From now on, he can finally drop his guard and enjoy his summer vacation. Plus, Iris and Wayne just rolled in for work, so he should spoil them a little with something fun and easy. He's already dreaming up a face mask business, the same move that worked with Toto, and he's set to launch it near the villa. He's even begged a friend to haul all the masks to Lotson's, and Iris is coming with him to sell them. Right by the villa, Kurori waves everyone in and lays out the truth about the masks. The woman demanded to know what it was, and Kudori leaned in, telling her, "It's a face mask now. Apply it once a day and your skin will turn purple like you're sealing it in a jar." She grabs the mask, because when the hero tells her it'll cost just 5 silver coins since she's their first customer today, she can't argue with the deal even if it still feels steep. She didn't even blink, like nothing could faze her. "So what amazing power does this wallet hold?" she asked. Kurori said, "Take the leaf out of the container, slap it on your face and you're good," and promised it would keep working for a full 8 hours. He told her to pluck the leaf right away and stop hesitating, and she promised, "I'll do it." If it worked exactly like he said, she swore she'd be back for more. Kurori just smiled and thanked her for the purchase. Iris snapped the question, "How much food could you grab with 5 silver coins?" The hero didn't sugarcoat it. That tiny pile bought a surprisingly hefty price. "Good thing we managed to sell at least one," the guy said. Because the truth is, sales rise or crash based on what the buyers think about the product. They'd only put out one mask, just one. More buyers won't show up for a while because that's the whole trick. Once you buy it, the mask basically forces you to come back for the next one. They swore to make everything run smooth, pushing as hard as they could to sell it fast. No one knew yet how it would turn out, but Iris grinned and promised they'd give it everything. Another woman stepped up and demanded to know what they were selling, and Cudderty proudly laid out his wares. Then another woman lit up, instantly showing interest. The young man blurted out that it was a face mask. Then the girls surged toward the counter. Iris said they totally crushed it today and sold a ton of stuff. He was just as shocked, because all they had left was a little facial oil, and even that had dried up. So now it was all about waiting to see how people reacted tomorrow, and somehow he didn't even sweat it, thinking maybe he could sell the pot tomorrow anyway. And depending on what people tell him, he'll have to map out his next moves. And the hero pitches using it alongside Mr. Lotson. She nodded right on the spot, cheeks burning the second his name was even spoken. Yeah, Iris was head over heels in love. The heroes finally caught up, and Vane practically breathed out. He said all that work made him feel genuinely better. Turns out they still had a few unused masks, so Vane offered one to Lotso and Lotso accepted. Then he decided to take just one. He's already picturing handing it to his wife. Like that'll make up for all the grind from his hectic schedule. Then Kurori, Vane, and Iris go wide-eyed in shock. The hero's jaw dropped as he blurted out in pure shock. "He's got a wife. What kind of twist is this? I never saw this coming." Iris's eyes fluttered shut and she blacked out, and Lotso went pale. He demanded to know what happened, and Kurori shot back that his employee was nothing short of amazing. Karud, his father, finally exhales with relief, thrilled that the guests have packed up and gone. 3 days have crawled by since Iris sank into despair, but good news. She's finally feeling better, and Wayne even hauled her out to hunt. Meanwhile, her father is soaking up the calm and quiet that's settled in. The butler strode up to the hero, voice tight, and snapped that he had a report. Word came in that Mark Carrick, the lord from the neighboring lands, had crossed into their territory, and he'd be arriving any moment. His father's leg cramped up, and he snapped an apology to his son. Then he tried to get out the name Carrick Marl. The boy remembered it all at once. Iris came from his territory, and the old tales said Marl mistreats everyone under his rule. Karori leaned in and asked, "Do you two know each other?" And he shot back, "Yeah, we're classmates." Marl was ahead of him in every single way. When they finally battled, he got crushed, and every time he sees her again, dread crashes over him like a wave, dragging him back to that defeat. Kudori called it, "This guy's nothing but trouble, always one step ahead," and said he'd meet him to straighten everything out, because Dad can't dump the whole mess on him. Carrick Marl looks like trouble waiting to explode. And if you're with him during that conversation, yeah, you're walking into danger too. The father's heart swells with pride because he finally has a son like this. They've got to go all out and give it everything they've got. Marlkerk showed up, kicked his feet onto the table, and flashed a grin as he welcomed the Helene family. His father greeted him like nothing had happened, and Curry's heart slammed into his ribs. He was completely shocked. He just couldn't wrap his head around this guy's manners. Marl even apologized for showing up out of nowhere, but one question clawed its way to the front, and it couldn't wait. Scuttlebutt says the residents are creeping into its territory, and that's why the tax money dried up. So he showed up here to claim compensation for the losses he caused. He's forced to pay back every loss, whether it's sweat, time, or cold hard money. My father demanded to know what he thought he was doing when he wrecked everything. Because the residents walked into his territory on their own, and the kingdom's laws clearly ban forced displacement of whole populations. He said it was a crisis. His land's military power had crumbled and his profits had dropped hard. All he has to do is cough up the compensation, and after that he'll handle the rest. The hero just shrugs like it's obvious why people are flooding in, lower taxes, more jobs, and suddenly moving here sounds like a no-brainer. Meeting the residents' needs is his first move, so why isn't he tackling the real problem instead of playing the victim? He's sure Marl gets exactly what's going on, and he's trying to dodge responsibility by throwing it all on her. Cuddy started hurling insults and snapped, "How dare you talk to us like that?" And in that moment he knew silence wasn't an option anymore, so Marl stepped in and demanded, who gave the outsider the right to say anything. The hero stepped up and introduced himself. Because he's the future lord of the Helen lands, and around here, nobody gets to call him an outsider. Marl demanded to be kicked out, but the boy begged his father to shut up, swearing they'd get zero compensation. Then straight up ordered them to leave their land. The man snapped that no matter what he claimed, the truth about his land taking losses because of them couldn't be swept under the rug, and he wasn't walking away empty-handed. Yuruji shoved the task on him, take 10 watermelons, and promised him not a single coin would come out of it. Marrow felt the whole thing slam into a dead end, so he pushed for a new plan and handed the case straight to the Elder of Duville. He'll show him a few social rules. Because the Elder Duville and he were classmates once, and their friendship never cracked after graduation, even though he'd only planned to beg them for money until his mindset flipped. He decides the smartest move is to beg Elder Duville to take these lands from them for his own good. And the boy can't stop thinking things are already getting worse. Turns out he's tied to the Emperor and not just casually. People like him command influence only the royal family can match, and the minister could snatch their lands without breaking a sweat. So the young man steps in and demands the higher-ups stay out of it. Marl can't make sense of any of it. This isn't a give him money plan at all. The guy even tells him with a straight face that sure, their lands are booming, but they've got not a single extra coin to spare. He blurts out whatever he wants with the minister backing him, no choice for anyone else, and he can still walk out of this verbal duel victorious. The boy's got sympathy, but Marl doesn't care one bit. He's already set on calling Elder Duville, and that's not going to change. The boy's father snapped and started hurling insults at that man like it was the last straw. And just like that, he slammed his fist into the guy's face. He brags that he can insult him, then slams the brakes and says he better not talk to his son like that again, because one more try and he'll call it war. Marl's stunned. He snaps that he needs to know his place, but the father won't back down. He orders him out. Karari told me his dad was absolutely legendary. And just when everything finally felt calm, the day slammed in, when the minister paid them a visit. Ian DeVille admitted he and Toril hadn't seen each other since school days, and his reforms and progress were so impressive they left everyone staring. The father insisted every wild idea was his son's, and the man snapped back that his boy was Eliza's classmate. He'd been hearing stories about him for ages. Kujiri felt like he'd hit the floor like he'd already lost. They were done. Marl pushed for the real problem right now, but Ian snapped that he was running out of time. Because starting a war felt like the worst move, especially with their ages. Instead, they should apologize to him and cover his treatment from the last fight. Father and son traded apologies, then swore they'd foot every cent of the medical bills, and Marl shrugged that the punch didn't even knock him that bad, until Ian snapped, "That's it." Then they packed up and headed out. Everyone's jaw dropped. Marl even blurted, "Are we really going even though this isn't settled?" The guy just smirked and said, "Relax, we already apologized to me." The Lord tried to speak, but Ian snapped his gaze on him and demanded he think about his own position. Because Ian couldn't wrap his head around who would dare talk to him like this, maybe the king? The prime minister shut that down fast, saying the person would be way higher than that. The father asked if their lands were safe at last, and Kurori nodded. Then she decided to go with them step for step. He burst outside and spotted Eliza, and before he could even process it, she smiled and greeted him. only for shock to hit him like a wave. He leaned in and thanked her, like those words mattered more than anything. Eliza told them she'd come just to visit a friend during the summer holidays. The hero told her, "Let me come with you, take me into the territory." Eliza shot him a grateful smile and thanked him. It felt safer to fake a smile and act like everything was totally fine. He held out a watermelon and swore it was sweet and berry bright, and the girl stared back, saying their lands were packed with mysteries. The girl absolutely loved every second of it. The guy said those seeds can be wiped out for good. She swore she was only dropping by for a single day, and Curare promised he'd sweep her through the most incredible spots in the area. The hero made up his mind. Right from there was where he'd begin. He told me this sweet lady chose to visit the estate, and he caught the exact moment she stepped into the place. The hero brought the girl over and then introduced the man too, claiming he'd watched over him for years when he was small and loaded him with all kinds of lessons. Morin just shrugged and said, that was no big deal. He said Volume 4 of the Book of Magic Asterisk is a total brain bender, and that he definitely can't wrap his head around it alone. But then the man shrugged and told him, just try. Curare agreed it was true, then said, sure, now come on, help me out. The girl shot him a warning, don't talk to him like that, and then told him he can't keep leaning on other people for help every time. The man said Eliza was right, and that look on her face was so sensitive it hit him like a truth. Morin said it would be amazing to have a brilliant girl like her join the family. Those communication skills were seriously insane. How did he do it like that? The hero swore he was back for good, but they told him to get out. He flat out refused. The boy told everyone this was his teacher, the one who taught him blacksmithing, and that guy was stubborn as steel. Eliza flat out told everyone she saw zero reason the hero should waste time learning blacksmithing. Kudori wrestled with the fact that she couldn't exactly tell him that this job would lock in their future together, because once she said it, turning it into something he could accept felt like the hardest pitch of her life. The man grabbed my attention and told me, don't stand in the hallway, get inside. It's called a tsundere. He claimed he'd always been like that, first snapping out scoldings, then switching to full-on care. The blacksmith told the boy he could run a business, and now it was time to build a family. Then he looked at the sweet girl beside him and swore she'd make a perfect wife, and the hero just said he'd think it over. The man said he'd got a brand new student, and if he found a moment, he'd go check them out. The blacksmith snapped at me to drop everything I was doing and get going. He introduced the hero and bragged that he barely ever shows up, and Kuznets snapped that the guy didn't even give him a heads up, because he was already on his way. Melissa arrived as the new student, and the boy admitted his blacksmithing skills weren't as impressive as they looked. Yet somehow that was totally fine. She told him to drop the modest act, because the master talks about him nonstop, and at least he's not the one making us laugh at his swords. The blacksmith scoffed, saying the hero didn't look like one, but his hands worked like a pro, while Melissa snapped that he couldn't keep up, because it would take him a couple more years of training before he even reached the next level. The girl demanded he call out every one of her mistakes. The hero nodded in agreement. Then Lisa lit up, saying she wanted to see the blacksmith at work, and she declared she'd watch right along. He snapped that she wasn't striking the material right, and the master cut in like, you know what you forgot during forging? Yeah, fix that. Because he'd faced the same issue once too, and he'd solved it with one simple trick. Curare looked you dead in the eyes and promised he'd show you. He showed her the stance, and insisted that surprise was the real advantage. One tiny detail could multiply the force of the hit, and teaching her something like that wouldn't be hard for him at all. Lisa told him, get ready, this is your first warning. He figured she was snapping, knew he couldn't teach Melissa for a while, so he grabbed this chance and made every second count. He asked the girl if it was okay to squeeze in a few more lessons for the student, and Eliza nodded without hesitation. Melissa told him that ever since she started taking his advice, her skills were already sharpening, and she thanked him from the heart. Since he was a year older and the master's senior apprentice, she even called him brother. Hearing it this way hit him with a sharper pride than Rasha ever could. And the moment a girl who wanted to be just like him said it, joy surged through him like wildfire. Eliza fired off a second warning, and this time he'd better listen. He kept firing off questions in his head, then Melissa finally finished. The hero praised the sword's balance and looks, but even that blade still had cracks hidden in its craft. She barely glanced at one spot and kept moving like nothing mattered. Eliza looked you dead in the eyes and said it was time to finally take what she was owed. The boy couldn't wrap his head around it. How could a man with a face so gentle swing at him? He figured he was just imagining the whole thing. He probably pictured it in his head, and she couldn't land a single hit, so all she could do was tell him to finally rest. The hero told the girl it was time to go, and Melissa shot back that he could drop by any time, she'd be waiting right there for him. He said constant screaming cuts your lifespan short. Then the man snapped at him to shut up and head home, saying they'd be waiting for him anytime. After that, the hero swept Eliza to the hot springs, and Eliza laughed, saying it was the best time. The girl raved that the hot springs were incredible, and somehow she could still smell those flowers the whole place had scattered everywhere, so beautiful they felt unreal. The hero pressed her for details about the land and she lit up, swearing it was amazing, and that she'd even been lucky enough to meet the local lord. Everyone who met her instantly liked her, and even his father, who usually couldn't stand her, didn't end up with a single stomach ache. He told her she could drop by any time and they'd be thrilled to see her. And Lisa shot back that she'd be more than happy to come again. He told her there were tons of things she'd never seen, and she promised to come, swearing he didn't have to worry. They swore to each other no matter what. You could call this the ultimate proof that the oath is real. Eliza said the moment she stepped out of those hot springs, dizziness hit her like a wave. The hero couldn't help but think it was downright adorable. Once the talk was over, she headed straight back to the capital, and when he caught her heading off, just a quick look, he felt a pang of sadness and carried on home. It was a blast of a day until one nagging question wouldn't leave his head. Why on earth did he introduce Eliza to his family? It felt weird, but honestly, he loved every second, and Eliza seemed to have the time of her life too. So yeah, this was the whole plan from the start, and those sweet memories could only help. After Eliza vanished, the days kept piling up, each one heavier than the last. With 3 of them standing there, the guy pitched a new formation. Wayne wanted to take point. Iris also fought to get up front, and the hero snapped that he'd cover them. Now they're deep in the forest on the property, right where things went wild a couple of hours ago. Monsters started showing up on their property, and before they knew it, everything spiraled out of control. Normally, the hero would just drop a kill request, but since 2 heavy hitters are standing right there, you'd better try to take him out yourself. He swore he'd track down a solution no matter what. Somehow that's how they wound up there. Wayne grinning like nothing could ruin the day, and Iris pushing to get right to the front. With everything so quiet and calm, it felt like the perfect window. Like the world was begging for monsters to suddenly show up. Knowing Vina, there's no way this is made up. He won't let his guard down, his eyes stay wide open. He swore he'd charge straight at them, and Iris would mop up anyone he left behind. So the protagonist better be ready to unleash his skills the second danger strikes. The girl loved blowing off steam until she felt finally free. Crudy finally got it. She didn't just vent, she destroyed her pent-up tension with one swing of a bat. They're so tough they can take on 3 goblins like it's nothing. And if you wanted to hire someone to hunt them down yourself, it would cost you 1 gold for each. They scrimped every single day and stacked their savings higher and higher. Becoming the next lord thrilled him to his bones. A ghoul was lurking nearby, ready to spring. Wayne leaned in and asked if they should go for it. And honestly, that question mattered, because regular ghouls are ridiculously powerful. You can't just step to him like he's some easy target. He's got an antidote, but trust me, it won't save you completely. She told you, just try it. She wanted this so bad it almost burned. Yet even with the antidote in his hand, she still had to stay sharp and careful. He promised he'd pull the fight away from Gaul, and then the girl would swing in and strike. Vine had to jump in and cover for them, just in case everything went sideways. They bolted forward. Looks like Iris still isn't feeling any better, at least not yet. They've gotta be quieter now. An orc plain and terrifying as it gets. This orc is pure nightmare. His brute strength and defenses smash past any normal human, and on top of that he's insanely fast, so trying to escape feels almost impossible. If it was truly the worst case, they wouldn't even get a single second to dodge it. Wayne warned that he was pure danger, so we should have kept our distance and skipped that fight entirely. If he put in a request, the price would have been brutal, so he decided to figure it out himself. Iris leaned in and said, "Come on, let's try it." The plan was locked in, exactly the same as before. It's massive, at least 3 meters tall, no joke. Surviving after his attack is going to be brutally hard. Even with Iris acting way too self-confident, her moves still carved out a bit of precious time. Now once this starts, there's no going back. She tore herself away and said goodbye to her crush, even though it felt like her heart was breaking. She gasped that she finally felt completely better, but the monster's face still looked straight up terrifying. Like all this time it had been dangling the idea of falling in love in front of her. Even with the relief, she knew there was no reason to spill everything to that thing. Rejected women huddle up, spill their hearts to each other, and somehow walk away feeling lighter. Once the hero said they were done, he suggested they hit the hot springs, and the girl immediately agreed. She flashed that smile, and it was like every worry vanished overnight. Like the grin was made just for her. With the tension finally gone, the guy popped the idea to play ping pong, and Iris blurted, "I've never played it a day in my life. The prize is this gorgeous cake," and she grinned and said she was just messing around. Wayne flat out refused to play. The hero snapped, "Then I'll lose," but right then, nope, the other guy is already out of the game. Curare shot back that nothing changed at all, and somehow he was still branded the loser. Wayne said, if that's how it goes, then I'm stepping into play. He claimed that ball couldn't slam into the net or even tumble off the table. And then he said they'd play until someone hit 10 points. He and Wayne are stepping up first to play, and the winner will get to face Iris next. The winner gets the cake, and Wayne instantly pushed for a clothing change, because it was way too hard to move in what they had on. Their outfits weren't built for table tennis at all. The guy shot back that it was a tradition. The hero admitted with a shaky grin that he was totally naive. He nailed it, and now that he finally got the basics, that kind of mistake won't happen again. He snapped right into it in no time. Wayne crushed it by 6 points, then shrugged and said, I'm finally getting the hang of it. Looks like this girl's got a brutal mountain to climb just to win. But hold up, this is where the real action kicks in, because that's exactly what table tennis was all about. He admitted he was too nervous right now to make a move, and Iris shot back, we'll see who's stronger. He didn't hold back for a second. He wasn't there to mess around. He played with full-on seriousness. She warned him, don't you dare mess with me. But he slapped her in the same spot over and over again. The hero swallowed his pride and apologized for crushing her hopes. The match hung on a knife edge, dead even, and the next point would decide it all. Whoever nailed that final score would grab the victory and take the cake. Wayne said her skills might be sharper, but the serve is his right now, and he's so sure the victory is already basically his. The girl smirked, said he had a point, and promised she'd return his hardest serve with a killer response. Vine said, I'll try, but the way she said it screamed she'd never pull it off. Keep Iris close. The girl was bursting with joy, like the whole world just turned in her favor. They fought on equal footing, and honestly, it felt right that the girl would grab the win and take the cake. The hero's heart sank. Everything he'd been waiting for never showed up. In the end, Iris finally snapped back to what he was, but still, he couldn't find what he came for. Sometimes you overthink for no reason. You panic just because you're in a panicky mood. Then you realize nothing is happening at all, so there's literally nothing to worry about. He couldn't contain his excitement, especially the night before summer holidays ended. Even though it was still midnight, strange sounds kept cutting through the silence, because a man wanted to talk to the hero and demanded to be let in. He had to catch him before it was too late. He caught the news and knew he had to rush over and tell him right away. A massive fire ripped through the place. This is where they made the big call to build houses for the incoming immigrants. And yeah, it's packed with workers. So when he asked about how big the fire was, you could feel the panic rising. Lotso said he couldn't tell how far the flames truly spread, until he heard the fire broke out in multiple spots at the exact same time. Right after that, the alarm screamed on, and since it all happened at night, panic hit instantly, with everything only getting worse by the minute. The hero shot him a grateful nod, thanking him for spilling the whole story. The man demanded that he give the order ASAP. He said, first, I'm changing clothes and getting ready. And yeah, he insisted he just needed a little time. Even with that calm face like a storm held back, someone was deadly serious. And this situation was way harsher than he ever expected. He couldn't tell if he'd even be able to keep control of the chaos. And the fact that the fire ignited from multiple spots felt way too deliberate to be pure chance, unless the report was totally wrong. Either way, right now he can't make any bold move. It might be pure coincidence, but he can't bring himself to confirm it. Your main job is to stay on top of the fire and guard it with your life. The hero shot them an apology for making them wait, right as the horses were finally ready to go. He lunged to stop his comrades, but they refused to back down. It was still midnight when they jolted awake. Wayne snapped that if he pulled a stunt like that, everyone would wake up, and the girl immediately said they wanted to help him. He admitted he still wasn't sure, because they might be walking straight into danger, and if he had his way, the two of them would stay right there. Iris snapped that nothing would sway her. She was going no matter what, while Vo insisted he couldn't stop them, and that man only regretted one thing: he should have been quieter. The hero snapped that none of this was his fault. He didn't know if they'd ever crawl back home safe and sound. They struck a deal anyway. He said, then you'll have me under your care. Either way, Vine was bored out of his mind. He's got friends he can always count on. There's a real chance that everything Lotso said hit the mark, and the odds are he engineered it as a planned accident from the start. Yeah, if that's true, that place is going to be seriously dangerous. If they slip and get hit by a fall while they're trying to put out that fire, it's going to turn into a disaster fast. If they can shut down that panic, and the criminals behind it get in their way while they're trying to light that fire, then this is about to turn into a disaster. If they don't move right now, everything's about to go to hell. The man blurted out, I'm sorry, because he truly thought his call had dragged them into a deadly mess at the worst possible time. But in that moment, he couldn't imagine anyone else could handle it. He shot back that he had nothing to apologize for. The hero told him, good thing I got this off my chest. I'd have hated myself if I hadn't taken action. Lotso told them straight up that he genuinely appreciated it. Vine promised he'd handle the enemy himself, and it turned out they had to do everything side by side. No splitting up, no delays. The man insisted he'd do it because danger was the point. These weren't just soldiers, they were the shield of the country, and betting their lives was literally the job. Their whole family was forged to guard the royal blood, so they can't just walk away from their life in that cottage. That would be straight up wrong. If he'd stayed safe the whole time, he'd never have crossed paths with his ancestors. He had a whole mess of problems he couldn't even ignore. Same goes for him, no shortcuts, no excuses. He has to carry out his duty come what may and make it through. The guy never imagined Wayne would go this hard, because once he latched on, there was no way he could shake him off. The hero told him, "I'm training you to handle possible enemies. But if it gets too dangerous, you jump in and promise me you will." The whole town was spiraling into panic, and he rushed in to steady everyone before it all fell apart. He tried to reach them, but nothing. No signal, no reply, just dead silence. Iris looked me dead in the eyes and told me, "Don't you rush, take your time." She blinked and snapped, "I've got an idea." Then she demanded they hand it over to her and pushed for the exact path like she already saw the finish line. He'd never witnessed magic like this. Then Iris cut in and told him to wait because she'd be back in a blink. It felt like deja vu hit the hero so hard it made his stomach drop. Long ago he pulled off summoning spirits straight out of a radish, and she was desperate to copy him, but her hands wouldn't cooperate, not even once. Until she ran into a kind, generous guy at school who stepped in and helped her. It was a mandrake, wild, mysterious, and not something you just ignore. She's only 2 years old, so yeah, she's still basically a kid. The boy demanded to know why she'd called him, then snapped that it made no sense to use her in a mess like this. Iris fired back that she was still just a kid, so what was the harm? The hero told him when you pull them out, they'd better break down and cry. The girl shot back saying she told him don't cry. He figured he knew nothing at all. She told him to cover his ears, like she was begging a mandrake to shriek, and the boy just didn't get how she was even supposed to make that make sense. Iris grabbed the mandrake and ordered it to scream, apologizing through gritted teeth for dragging it out at that exact moment. But the situation was desperate, so she asked her the way she always did. The girl snapped, "Don't say that." Then she leaned in and promised, "If you do what I asked, I'll give you as much hummus as you want." The girl shot him a bright, heartfelt thank you. Now she's turning around and heading back into the forest. After they thanked the mandrake, the hero declared, "From this moment on, I'll handle everything," and told everyone who was still there, "No arguments. Get out right now and don't look back." He begged them not to rush in and fight the flames themselves, even if the whole house is burning, because once this is over, he'll make sure every loss gets covered, and if they can't move, then they've got to lean on other people to help. Safety has to come first right now. The others will watch the fire like hawks, and the river better be right nearby. The hero demanded, "Let me take all of you there." They'll grab every bucket they can spot and slam them into the flames until the fire finally goes out. It sure looked like something or someone had their backs and it was tailing them. He spotted a bunch of figures moving straight toward the forest. Maybe they're criminals, and now he's going to hunt them down. Wayne warned the guy it might be a trap, then shrugged like he already knew, and even if it was, he'd draw them off for a while, ordering him to watch the fire closely. The hero begged everyone to never drop the safety rules. Wayne fired back that he'd already figured it out. Iris and Kujiri are stepping in to help the citizens right away. The hero begged them, "Don't stop, keep going." The flames weren't spiraling out of control yet, but if they kept moving, everything was about to go bad fast. One lone person stared at them like he couldn't look away for ages. The hero grabbed Iris and told her to protect the others. Then he swore he'd hold the line right there. The second their eyes locked, he bolted, no hesitation at all, and yep, it was him. He had no clue why he'd ended up there, but he was right in the middle of it, because the hero looked him in the eye and said it was already too late to run. Vine chased the criminal like it was running out of time. The hero launched forward and snatched the man before he could even react. He begged for mercy and asked them to spare his life. The guy swore he wouldn't kill him. He'd drag him to his lord the hard way, using pure brute force. Vine was unarmed and the man snapped that whole time. He didn't get cornered at all, he cornered him. He suddenly clocked the trap and knew he was being set up. The stranger lined in and said it was meant for him. Bandits grabbed the wrong person and swore he was the main character. They claimed they dragged him there just to trap him and bring him down. The guy finally got it. Turns out his original goal was actually to become the hero all along. He swore up and down that he was curate. They ditched the whole chase and promised they'd grab him later. But now the man refused to let him slip away. Now that he knew their target was curate, he wouldn't let a single thing go their way. He said, "Maybe I'm tough, but I've got no sword and there are 6 of them, so yeah, I'm the only one who should be scared." He told me that the guy was trapped in a total nightmare. Vine shot back that he was a bit unhinged, but he wasn't about to wear his feelings on his sleeve. So yeah, he's got barely any friends. And that's exactly why he fights to protect the one he has, like it's something precious. That's why they're about to get wrecked. The man admitted he didn't quite get him, then shrugged like, if you're itching for a fight, go ahead, swing at me. He bragged that they were mercenaries, and that guys like him didn't even come close to them. He told us we could still do something, and that we don't even need a sword to take them down. Then he drops the real bomb. There are 5 left, so we're supposed to rush them all at once. One of the bandits shot him a question. Why are you saying all this to your enemies? Vane smirked and said it was all too clear. Once he faced those mines, none of them would stand a chance. Then he beckoned them in, urging them to come closer. He said, if you won't do it, then I'll do it myself. I'm coming in person. He assumed they'd been paid to do it, and tried to make them spell his name right on the spot. The man swore he'd never say his name, even if he crushed him. Vine boasted he'd bagged every kind of beast, but never once people. Then he dared them to watch if they'd stay just as unwavering after he wiped them all out. The man promised, I'll spill everything, and pleaded, please spare me. It was morally right, no doubt about it. He pulled every single string behind the scenes. The hero called it an eerie twist of fate, saying it was wild he'd wound up here, and the man snapped back that he had no idea what he meant. He flashed a smug smile on purpose, then played dumb like he knew nothing at all, and like he hadn't touched a thing. He straight up said he was out of time. First, he'll bind him up tight, then he'll lean in and hear every word he's got to say. Marl snapped that he had 0 grounds for it, and that this would blow back on him in court, because the only person they'd be able to pin it on was him. The main character confessed his tale was putting him to sleep, begged him to forget every word, then said he'd just come at him anyway. Before any of that happens, he'll finally hit him with the truth, because the man insisted those people had already claimed business on his territory long ago. He just couldn't accept something so small turning everything upside down, and he refused to forgive it. He said these people were about to rebuild everything from zero, and you could see it, hope blazing in them like they truly believed tomorrow would be better. The hero refused to give him an ounce of respect, none. Marl shot back, I'm doing great. They were forced to bow to him, then he lit the whole place on fire. To watch them flee in panic. Then the guy snapped that it was a dumb reason, all tied back to his crushing low self-esteem. The man warned, act right if you're truly noble. The hero snapped that this wasn't something nobles had any right to touch. He cut through the noise, said he was done with all this chatter, and drew his sword. He dared the guy to step outside and settle things with a duel. If he fails, he'll face the people and pay for every sin. Then the kingdom will hand him exactly what he has coming. The man straight up said he was accepting the challenge. If he loses, he'll have no choice but to give in and do exactly what he's told. If he wins, the guy still dies, so it's all on him in the end. Once he loses, that blade will plunge straight through him. He leaned in and insisted, I swear on everything. He couldn't believe the Lord had a blade like that. Marl told him, don't freeze, go for it in this fight. He flat out told them, I'm too soft for this, and admitted he felt 0 sympathy for his opponent. That's why he's about to win. He snapped that his sword was useless, then got distracted and threw away the rhythm like it was already over. The hero declared, I've won, and swore that the man would finally pay for every sin and own up to what he did. Dude, the fight's over, done, finished, and the chaos has finally stopped. A little later, the gendarmes stormed in, yanked the man down, and tied him up, dragging him away after the fight on the smoldering ruins of the burnt houses. The girl smiled and swore it all worked out for them in the end. The hero shot back, I'm good too, and then revealed he'd finally tracked down that leader. The guy snapped that all his attempts to beat confessions out of those guys were just dead on arrival, utterly pointless. Wayne told him not to worry, but the truth was he was just relieved the kid came out unharmed. Their team absolutely crushed it. Honestly, Vine would have never tossed out something like that, but somehow he did, and now you can feel it, people change. The girl demanded to know who was pulling the strings behind all of this. This was that legendary leader, the one who truly mattered. They're shipping him to the capital, and the king himself is going to handle his punishment. After what they told him, the whole gang was suddenly there, like the universe pulled up the crew for him. The case snapped shut like a final punchline. The man said it like it was obvious. The hero couldn't find anyone better. The guy shot his gratitude at everyone, one heartfelt thank you after another. The night dragged on and on. Then they hauled the man in and made sure justice finally caught up. Peace finally settled over the valley, and as a nobleman turned temporary lord, he could get back to playing his part. No more interruptions, just business as usual. The hero leaned in and asked, is there anything else you're not satisfied with? Marl shot back that this wasn't the end at all. The boy swore his friends had vanished, and the man shot back that they were right beside him, every single one. Karuri said they were locking them up and watching their every move, like nothing could change their situation. Then the man nodded along, agreeing. Now his hands are bound tight behind him. He boasted that he could still torch the Lord's estate, no question. The hero snapped out, "That's impossible." Marl swore he wouldn't let him kick back and get comfortable on his own. Their whole plan was aimed at their father, so he ordered them to whip the horses around and turn back. The man said it should be blazing right about now. At midnight, the flames will swallow it whole. If the hero thinks he's lying, then he has to march to the estate, because all he'll find waiting there is the ashes of what used to be. His father might have been a coward, but he was no villain. He was a good man through and through. Whatever happens, he refuses to let them die in the middle of this nightmare, because every person he loves is still trapped back at the estate. This is the house he grew up in. No one's allowed to touch him or harm him. The hero snapped, "This isn't over." And even as everything fell apart, hope still burned in his chest. Marl snapped back that this was a lost cause. But there was one more thing he could do. He has to fire up the magic book he borrowed from Morin, even though he can't even count how many times his spirit has been shattered. Before he couldn't do a thing, but now it's simple. He has to act right now. He has to do it, no excuses, no turning back. He just couldn't pull it off in that exact moment. The girl grabbed his attention and demanded he listen. He actually pulled it off. This brutal long night is finally done. After the incident, everything felt impossible to even process. Those fire-damaged houses couldn't be saved without tons of hands and a huge pile of money, and still, the victims went on living, smiling like life had never struck back. That's what matters most. The king himself sent a letter giving them permission to try the criminal under their own law, but he flat-out refused. The hero's sure the king will hand down the perfect punishment, and Vane fires back that a good ruler will do exactly what's right. So trusting him was the right call. He swore he believed him, but the wild part was, he didn't even know what their king looked like. He couldn't stop wondering what kind of man Rashi and Ark's father really was. You can say that summer hit hard and made life rough, but deep down it still feels like those school days back then were just a tiny, distant thing. Vine told me that once he got the chance to hunt monsters, and he said it was pure fun. The hero never wanted to live through that nightmare again. The girl leaned in and told me she absolutely loved watermelons. The guy raved that the watermelons were amazing, and Iris lit up, saying the hot springs were pure fun, and she'd be right back again. The hero urged her to swing by any time, and when he heard they both loved their territory too, pure relief flooded him. The father clocked that they were about to head out and demanded they stay a little longer. He crashed into deep sleep that night, like the whole world could wait. But the hero just smiled, "I'm fine," like always, and said it right as they started to leave. The main character said the summer felt awesome, but he'll be heading out again soon. Still, if trouble hits, he should go talk to Lotso. The girl thanked him for letting them stay, and Vine thanked him too for caring enough to worry. Father Shook only lifted his shaking hand, his eyes locked in intense focus. He told her to come back anytime she wanted. And just like that, their summer burned out. The hero declared, "I'm leaving," and the carriage rocketed toward the academy. Summer holidays vanished in the blink of an eye, and just like that, they got hauled back to school. This boy still can't get used to riding in a carriage, and now the holidays are officially done. School is about to start. After what felt like forever, he finally pushed back into the dorm, nostalgia crashing over him and a spark of something brand new lighting up inside him. The hero flat out told them they weren't even close to that relationship stage yet. He said it was a relationship where they'd just do their own thing. Curioli told him to stop making that face. He told them, "I came back after the summer holidays to see you," then demanded they explain why he wasn't even allowed onto the territory. The hero basically said, "If you wanted to be here, you should have just done it. No overthinking, no excuses." Ark and the Queen were right there on the territory too. Eliza was right there, standing beside them. So he demanded to know why he hadn't invited him. Like, didn't they even have a relationship? The hero leaned in and demanded, "Tell me, why did you come here?" The guy swore he didn't need a thing, and the hero barely had time to realize he'd made it into his room, because the truth was, he didn't want anything at all. The guy admitted it, and Cudity immediately felt like something about him was seriously creepy. The hero snapped at him to get out. "No help, no need, just leave." He demanded, "Tell me the reasons." He snapped that it wasn't cute at all. He didn't even knock, just barged right in, and the hero couldn't figure out how that could be so normal to him. After all, he showed up for one reason, training, and we can worry about everything else later. He swore he'd made it just in time and begged for help. Then Karuri tried to bully him into doing it. The hero snapped, "I'm the one who's fighting, now get your hands off me." Vi warned him, "Don't push it, the hero still did nothing. He said it was totally worth finally seeing Curacy again after all this time. He was meant to show up. Even with that laid-back reply, his legs were trembling like crazy. Vine couldn't get enough of him. Rain cornered him and demanded, "Have you been here lately?" He snapped, "I wasn't invited." He knows it's brutal to finally work up the nerve to ask out the person you're crazy about. The hero couldn't stand him. They sipped hot tea and waited, letting the minutes drag on until something finally happened. Wayne was trembling like something inside him was about to snap. Somehow Rail latched onto him and they got way too close, like it happened overnight. He kept waiting for the day his room would finally turn into his own private hideout. None of it mattered. He kept staring at the door, praying Karasi would actually show up. And he'd even convinced himself he'd be first to practice with the vein, but he was wrong. He told everyone, "I've got something I have to handle," so he skipped the territory. He tossed that line out, and suddenly they couldn't stop asking how he spent his holidays. Rail swore Karasi wouldn't show up, but right now she's in a dangerously delicate spot. Wayne said, "Sure, I'm handsome, but I'm still just a kid." Rail snapped that he was wrong, and then made it clear she was still just a girl. And yeah, she's a princess. A stunning princess from a kingdom. Then civil war tore her home apart, and the chaos got so bad they threw her into exile. Now the kingdom finally settles into calm and she slips back home. She's the royal family's only true descendant. And Vane, coming from a noble bloodline, knows that fact all too well. The hero couldn't stop asking himself question after question. After hearing what went down in the knight's family, he couldn't help wondering, what kind of shock would it cause if he threw a party for that girl? Still, she was a princess through and through, elegance in every breath, grace in every gesture. He was totally shocked. Rail said she'd gone back home for good, so she won't return to the academy anymore. And if things stay this way, they might never see each other again. She's trapped in a brutal situation, so she can't even step out of her kingdom. The hero couldn't stop thinking about going to see her. Rail blurted, "Let's run," and pushed the idea of fleeing. He swore he was right, even though the question hit him, when did he get this good? And honestly, Raul just carried this oddly carefree mindset like it meant nothing. Only now does it hit him. He should have cherished that sweet goodbye to his girlfriend before summer break, because they had the kind of time that feels impossible to replace. And he refuses to let it end like this. One tiny letter, just one, could have changed everything, but it wasn't sent, so at least she could have thrown them a lifeline of answers. He's her teacher and her friend, and the moment she stomps in home without saying a word, you just know he's about to chew her out. The second they got back to school, they bolted out with everything they had. The three of them tore off toward the kingdom, ready to take on whatever waited there. 2 weeks vanished like a flash of lightning. At last, they crashed into the girl's homeland. The hero leaned in and heard the kingdom was basically legendary for one thing: fishing. He said this meant he'd finally get to fish whenever he had free time. But first, I had to find the princess. Rail leaned in and asked what he should say to her, but the hero had no clue. Because when he'd talked to her before, everything felt normal, and the moment he realized she was a princess, the whole vibe flipped. Rain ordered them to hold up right as they started closing in. They were told to stand by and wait. They got buried because the guy shipped the letter ahead of time, so nobody even noticed. The hero figured this was exactly what was coming. After years as the prince's assistant, of course he had to stay put for a few days. Rain swept in to meet the princess, introduced himself on the spot, and quickly apologized for crashing her day without warning. The girl told him don't worry, and then thanked him for everything. He looked exactly like the kind of perfect nobleman you'd expect in a royal court. The hero admitted it had been ages since they last saw each other, and the princess snapped, saying she never got the chance to say goodbye, and then she bowed an apology. Kurori told him everything's fine, they said things are back to normal now. And then she asked, "So you're safe too, right?" But she still hated that she couldn't squeeze out a real goodbye before she bolted out of the academy. She just managed to thank them as she left. That guy was desperate to talk to Vine. The hero asked Wayne if he was really okay with all this, and Wayne was already buzzing with excitement, because he was looking forward to that meeting more than anyone. The girl told the teacher in a hurry that she had to go. She had a mountain of political business to handle. So she grabbed his arm and told him to take a stroll through the city while she was tied up. The girl promised, "I'll come as soon as I get a break." The hero pushed for one more minute with her, refusing to let the conversation end yet. He chatted with Rain, then locked in a plan. They'd roam the city tomorrow and he'd split the day after. The hero's chest tightened with crushing dread. What if he could never talk to her again? And he couldn't figure out why that boy stayed silent. Curry Ray tossed and turned, but sleep just wouldn't come. Mayana overheard that they were headed out to see the kingdom today, and the princess wasted no time. She ordered Mayana to guide them. Because the kingdom was famous for fishing, he pitched the idea of building a fish market. The hero confessed he hadn't tasted fresh fish in ages, and he was craving to try it right then. The girl leaned in and swore she knew the perfect place. It's right next to the royal castle, so nobody's messing with you. This country may be poor, but the people are doing all right because the fish keep everyone fed and thriving. That's the spark that made this kingdom unlike any other. Ahead lay the pier, and right beside it stood a buzzing market. So if they spotted their favorite fish, they had to grab it immediately before they headed home. The hero asked, "Can I actually eat this fish?" And the girl grinned and said, "People all the time chow it down just like this." The guy leaned in and told me he loved raw curare. There was this nearby restaurant everyone swore had the best fish in town, and the guy agreed they'd go as soon as she suggested it. The sashimi was carved from fresh tuna. He told her he loved it, because that's the princess's absolute favorite dish. The hero said, "If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it," and his face made it painfully clear. The guy demanded to know why the Nico-sensei was there, and she snapped back, "That's my question." The hero blurted that he'd come for the princess, and she snapped back with an apology, swearing she had no idea who he meant. Kuriri shot her a question about herself. This was her hometown, the place that held all her roots. Kwashma she'd finally escaped into vacation mode. The hero just prayed she wouldn't throw that same question at her again. The other day, she was strolling right alongside her friend. She shot back that she was their old friend, an elite wizard who'd been backing them up ever since the kingdom was founded. Those kids were her students, and the real protagonist was just learning. She was a fully realized student herself. The student she named is the hero, and the other one, he's the prince. After everyone was done eating, the cat perked up and pushed for a fishing trip. She snatched a fish out of the water with lightning-fast hands. The hero thought she'd snagged a ton. Wayne snapped that their friendship couldn't just die like that. He begged for permission to do exactly what he wanted. She spent her whole life as the kingdom's first princess, back when the land was nothing but rice fields and fishing boats, until their only way to survive was to defend the country with help from a neighboring state. The king on the throne is pure honor, beloved by every last person in his kingdom. He's gentle, kind, and hates conflict, and still 10 years ago, the peaceful world he protected started to crack. Adrian Brezhnev, the mighty merchant, rolled in like a storm, and the winds of change chased him. He pulled workers into his orbit, built a union with his own hands, and that charity kept saving lives for years. Hadrian saved countless lives and made their days better. Then the princess's father crowned him a feudal lord, loaded with big hopes for what came next, and handed him land in the country's south, a grown-up rural stretch, yet even there he kept fighting for the union. Hadrian poured his fortune into fishing and forged a booming industry across the south. Then the kingdom surged with wealth. The people swelled in number, and they practically worshipped him as the god of fortune until everything snapped overnight. Hadrian flooded his lands with more guards, cranked taxes up every single month, and if anyone got sick or tried to slip out of the south, they were dragged in, captured, or arrested. And while the king barked orders, Hadrian flat-out ignored him and kept hammering his own personal army bigger and stronger. He realized his fortune had exploded to 1,000 times his original capital, all because of the army he built with his own hands. 2 years ago, he struck first, declaring war on the royal family. And Hadrian slammed together a massive army, pouring in his own fortune and forcing everyday citizens into the fight, where too many people never made it back. To keep the princess from getting dragged into the war, they shipped her off to another kingdom, while the royal army stumbled through unfamiliar countryside, and the rebels, who knew the land like the back of their hands, surged ahead. And that's when Hadrian finally got the advantage. For nearly 2 whole years, civil war tore the land apart while Hadrian's troops swept through and seized the kingdom. Then, out of nowhere, Hadrian died. Drunk on his winning streak, he threw a celebration as his troops marched straight toward the capital, because he always had a weakness for the bottle, and that night he downed 4 full glasses of wine. As he slept, death struck, and the moment the news hit, his army crumbled into pure chaos. The rebel forces crumbled and scattered because most of the soldiers refused to keep fighting. And in the end, the royal army marched in and took the win. Once peace was finally back, the princess strutted home. This happened during the summer holidays, and yeah, this kingdom carries one wild past. The crisis isn't done yet, so she storms back for round 2. Nico stays so quiet he won't dare ruin the vibe, and Vine just shrugs, saying she's too modest to brag. The girl boasted that during the Civil War she crushed enemy generals and basically carried the royal family for the last 2 years. Then she smiled and let him cook for her. She's begging him and the others to rally for the princess, because she's got one hope, a real hero. And that guy warned them if we don't act, the country could tip back into chaos, because the South is rising again, and before you know it, the Civil War will roar back to life. The hero told her, "I get you," then promised to be her best friend's shield and help her through it. She thanked him with tears in her eyes and confessed she was over the moon, but Vine felt like someone ripped his chest open. He couldn't shake the pain of misreading what the princess meant, because after all, they were best friends. Rael told them that in the kingdom, Cuden's reinforcements finally revealed the civil war to him and Vine, so Vine can't just act like it's no big deal, especially since he's not the knight captain's son and now he should have been furious. If he'd known the princess had been pulled into this war, he would have sprinted to join the army without hesitation. But thanks to the girl's link, he finally managed to befriend her. And honestly, he's grateful to the bottom of his heart for it. Nico snapped that the crisis wasn't done, and he wouldn't let anyone pry for details yet. He hinted there was still something they hadn't cracked, because this mess was way more complicated than it looked. They decided to track down the source of that sound, right where it was coming from. Smoke crawled through the air, thick and unmistakable. The hero insisted they only saved themselves, because his lightning-fast reaction put the fire out just in time. The guy just assumed everybody headed straight for the main hall. Rain managed to slam one of the criminals into custody. That's when everyone finally saw just what the princess's assistant could pull off. She's yanked into safety right now, guarded on all sides, and he's convinced she's already reached a secure place. The hero promised he'd finally breathe easy, so long as the girl was safe. Then he had to wait until tomorrow to get the real details of what happened. The flames most likely kicked off in an empty room of the castle and then tore straight into the food storage room. But the other fires got snuffed out in time. After one of the saboteurs got captured in the downpour and their flames got snuffed out, a breathtaking performance lit up the stage, and tons of guests packed in to watch. The girl told them the king was summoning all three to his place, and she begged to be escorted there in peace. The man told them he'd brought all three together for a reason. They all lit up and thanked him for the invitation. Even though the girl has no clue who Riene is, the man insists that shipping his daughter off to another kingdom was the only right move. The girl blurted out that she was insanely sorry for all the trouble she'd put him through. He told her it was fine, then she shrugged and said, "Dad says I should chill with my friends." The protagonist admitted he was terrified they might not be able to talk anymore, and the girl breathed a little easier about it too. Then the guy confessed they'd gotten totally sidetracked while explaining the kingdom. While she hid somewhere safe, Prince Ark backed her up, setting it all up with help from another country. The hero snapped that she shouldn't worry. If she struck him, he'd slip right back to her old Wayner state and he'd stop. She shot back that the guy was like an oak tree, stubborn, hard to break even now. But in the end, everything finally snapped back to normal. The girl piped up about a fish race, a game they'd invented in their kingdom that only just reopened a month ago, and they didn't waste a second, they decided to go. Vine snapped that he wasn't going anywhere. The princess urged, "Leave him behind," and Vine's need for more time made it feel inevitable, because he was desperate to find out exactly when Vine would finally strike a deal with her. The race happens in a tiny natural lake. They dump in fish, then start betting like crazy, and the guy who came up with the whole bet idea is the one pushing it. A waiting room sat there for the 12 fish about to compete, and people kept showing up to judge their condition, so he leaned in like, "Can you really tell by just staring?" Then he picked one fish and checked it up close. This fish isn't just fast, it's pure grace on fins, the one-of-a-kind result of an entire generation of ruthless selective breeding. Sure, claiming it's the fastest fish on the continent might be a stretch, but people still bet their money on it. Her dad knows fish races inside out, he even raised them himself. So when he spots her, he grins because she's the crowd's favorite and the scoreboard proves it. He insisted the scales weren't slanted toward 11, and they looked puny and sickly, while she snapped that it was painfully clear he was a total amateur. How could anyone miss the fish's pedigree, and how could someone as confident as him still mess up later? She volunteered to place the master's bet for them, bet number 6, while Vanya insisted he should go with number 1 instead, because she was in peak shape with a solid, powerful physique, and the whole race was already exploding into chaos as the hero desperately pushed for number 6 to win. Rain said he picked number 2, while the hero couldn't stop thinking about what would happen if that fish actually managed to win. Race time was here, number 6 stood in 12th, and the guys erupted with cheers to pump him up. The race detonated into motion, and number 1 shot out front, sprinting for the win right from the start. In the end, number 1 gets cut right out of the game, because their own rules say they're disqualified. With 1 knocked out, 11 is suddenly in front like everyone predicted. The most popular pick is taking the lead, but the ride isn't over yet. Today was brutal, right out of the gate, number 2 shot into the lead, and that smart fish picked the shortest route like it was made for a sprint. Number 6, it's *1****. The girl claimed he had such a razor-sharp eye that he could spot which flying fish were actually healthy and which ones were sick. And the guy shot back that there was no way he could pull that off. He just thought it all looked way too delicious to question. He gushed that it was amazing, then bolted home, while the princess showed back up like she'd just survived a meeting with a politician, and the guy demanded to know how long they'd been there. Nico told them they could stay as long as they wanted, do whatever they pleased. and she was certain the princess would be over the moon to hang out with them longer. I could have just waited and let them catch up when I got back, but she hadn't told everyone everything. There was something huge she was keeping from them, and it was all about the Civil War. He already made it crystal clear, the Civil War isn't over yet. And yeah, Adrian's son is still alive, thriving, and doing great.